Chapter 224. As Chen Hao had expected, he flipped open the slip of paper beside the secret manual and jade bottle. It was indeed the reward for being joint first among the advanced disciples. Elder Wu and the steward of the first peak were the only ones who could send items through the restriction on the palace gate without his knowledge. Instant kill sword technique, a top Khanate realm sword technique. Instantly condenses a lifetime's worth of cultivation to counterattack. As fast as lightning. It is an instant kill. Use with caution. Berserker Pill can instantly increase one's strength by 3 times for an hour. After 10 hours, one will have no combat ability. It is also known as a life-saving pill. Use with caution. Chen Hao read the slip of paper. No wonder they used jade slips. This secret manual was different from any that Chen Hao had seen before. It was a secret manual condensed from jade slips. When he entered the sect, Chen Hao already knew that all powerful and precious cultivation techniques were condensed from jade slips. After anyone used it, the jade slips would shatter to prevent the secret manual from being stolen and leaked. Not bad. But this reward is a little strange. Did Elder Wu specially make this? Chen Hao frowned and muttered. Secret manuals and pills were used to save one's life when one was on the verge of death. They were not very useful for Chen Hao's cultivation. That must be it. Everyone knows about the conflict between me and Fan Fong. It's good that I haven't gone out to train. If I really go out to train, I will inevitably be hunted down. That's not right. Fan Fong is at the peak of the golden elixir realm. Even with this instant kill sword technique and berserker pill, it won't solve the problem. Could it be because of Yi Wendao? Chen Hao shook his head. He did not understand and did not probe further. He directly put the secret manual and pills into the storage space of the Xianhuang ring. At this moment, it was not the time for him to cultivate. Chen Hao turned into a gust of wind and silently floated into the cultivation room. He forced himself to close his eyes and not look at Tantai Lian. He directly sat opposite her in the raging nirvana flames. After sitting down, he quickly released a thick smoke that floated between him and Tantai Lian. Although he was deceiving himself, Chen Hao still did it. It was one thing whether he could deceive her or not. He just had to insist that he didn't see it. Whether Tantai Lian believed him or not, there was finally a way out. By doing so, he could at least maintain a distance between them like last time. Otherwise, Chen Hao wouldn't know how to continue dating Tantai Lian. For the current Chen Hao, there were some things that he would have to avoid. An hour later, the raging nirvana flames finally began to converge on Tantai Lian's body. At the same time, a dense aura began to emanate from her body. Sure enough, as Chen Hao had expected, Tantai Lian, who had temporarily obtained the complete inheritance of the phoenix, had advanced. Moreover, she had directly broken through 3 barriers from the 8th grade of divine intent to the 2nd grade of divine intent. Following the disappearance of the nirvana flames, a strong stench once again emanated from Tantai Lian's naked body, just like the time when she had obtained the inheritance. Tantai Lian, who was still immersed in the profound concept of the inheritance of the phoenix, was about to slowly open her eyes. Her nose twitched, and the strong stench caused her to frown slightly and wake up a little. The scene of the two of them being naked flashed across her mind. Without any suspense, a scream exploded from Tantai Lian's mouth. Immediately, Tantai Lian covered her twin peaks and jumped up. Everything before her was dark. Phew! What are you screaming for? All right. So smelly. Hurry up and wash up. Throw away the clothes on you. Go. Chen Hao covered his nose and waved his hand. Although he was hidden in the black fog, he still did it properly. When Tantai Lian, who was feeling ashamed, heard Chen Hao's words, especially the 2 words "so smelly," she wanted to immediately find a hole to hide in. All other thoughts disappeared instantly. She only knew that she was smelly, very smelly, so smelly that she wanted to vomit. How would Chen Hao feel then? Throw away the clothes. The ashamed Tantai Lian was confused. She didn't have time to think. Taking advantage of the dark room in front of her, she directly rushed out of Chen Hao's cultivation room with one hand covering her chest and the other hand covering her buttocks. She definitely couldn't go back at this time. She could only go to Chen Hao's bath to wash up. Ah? Such cold water and ice. After Tan Tai Lien jumped into the huge bath, she, who wasn't mentally prepared, suddenly shuddered and said. But she couldn't care less. She rubbed the oily and black smelly things off her body. What made her blush and ashamed was that the entire bathtub smelled. She hurriedly turned on the water tank and the water tank. Immediately, hot water began to flow into the bathtub. Tan Tai Lien stood under the water tank and washed herself. What? So smelly, so smelly. Xiao Lian, burn your clothes. Don't keep them. It's too smelly. I'm afraid my palace will be open for 2 or 3 days before it returns to normal. No, I can't take it anymore. I'm going out first. Scram. Tan Tai Lien roared. How could she, who was already ashamed to begin with, endure Chen Hao's repeated blows? She was so angry that she wanted to cry. She wasn't stupid. On the contrary, she was very smart. But, since Chen Hao was so shameless, what could she do? She could only take one step at a time. At least, although Chen Hao was shameless now, he wasn't heartless enough to abandon her, right? Moreover, Chen Hao's actions didn't seem to be a bad thing for her. Because she wasn't mentally prepared at all. With a sinister and smug smile, Chen Hao released his deity-level aura for the first time after rushing out of the palace. He began to fly in the air. Clouds automatically condensed under his feet, and his flying speed instantly increased by more than 2 times. What made Chen Hao even happier was that the energy he consumed was also reduced by several times. With his freakish recovery speed, there was almost no consumption. This meant that if he wanted to, he could fly endlessly. The Jai Xing sect stretched for hundreds of miles and had a radius of nearly 1,000 miles. In name, there were 3,600 peaks. This referred to the peaks that were combined with the Jai Xing sect's restrictions. In reality, there were countless small peaks. Even the disciples of the Jai Xing sect, including those who had been promoted to inner and core disciples, might not have all been there. And these peaks and danger zones were where the disciples of the Jai Xing sect cultivated outside of their rooms. After all, many cultivation techniques were more suitable for cultivation in a natural environment. Voila, the waterfall fell 3,000 feet. A giant waterfall that looked like the Milky Way appeared in front of Chen Hao. It was 1,000 feet high and 100 feet wide. It was magnificent and magnificent. Chen Hao's heart trembled. Ever since Chen Hao had arrived at the Jai Xing sect, he hadn't wandered around. His understanding of the Jai Xing sect was still limited to that thick book. This is the famous outer heaven waterfall of the Jai Xing sect? It really is a sacred place for cultivation. Chen Hao thought to himself as he sensed the extremely dense water attribute energy. His gaze was fixed on the numerous figures who had cultivated near the huge pool under the waterfall, in the pool, and under the waterfall. Some were sitting cross-legged on the water, meditating. Some were waving their swords at the water. Some were standing directly under the waterfall, resisting the terrifying impact of the water and constantly waving their palms. Senior Brother Chen Hao. Wow, Senior Brother Chen Hao. What caused Chen Hao to be slightly astonished was that as soon as he descended to the edge of the pool, some of the nearby young disciples noticed him, and their gazes were filled with surprise as they called out respectfully. Especially the 2 female disciples, their eyes were full of stars as they looked at Chen Hao. Chen Hao smiled and nodded slightly to the crowd. This is the outer heaven waterfall, right? Yes. Senior Brother Chen Hao, are you here to test your sword? That's great, it's an eye-opener. Senior Brother Chen Hao is the #1 advanced disciple. Maybe he will succeed. Hey, come out. Senior Brother Chen Hao is here to test his sword. Ahem. Chen Hao coughed awkwardly. He didn't expect these disciples to be so enthusiastic. Chen Hao had learned about the so-called sword test from the information. It was also a standard to test one's strength. But he really didn't mean to test his sword. He just wanted to take a look. But these disciples all agreed that he was here to test his sword. Moreover, they even called out his name. In an instant, without waiting for Chen Hao to speak, they all gathered around and looked at Chen Hao expectantly. There were low-level disciples, middle-level disciples, and advanced disciples. The advanced disciples' cultivation was naturally higher than Chen Hao's, but their eyes were still full of respect for Chen Hao, and they also called him senior brother. Senior brother Chen Hao, if you can succeed, even if it's only for a breath, you will definitely be rewarded. Our star-picking sect doesn't have a disciple in the nascent realm who can succeed. Senior brother Li Long and many other 9th-level martial gods have tried. Senior brother Li Long is the current record holder among the outer disciples. He cut half of the waterfall and lasted for a breath, said an advanced disciple. Is that so? Chen Hao's interest was piqued when he heard the senior disciple's words. This wasn't recorded in the information. Yes, it said that many experts in the Golden Core realm can't completely cut off the waterfall. Even if they can, it can't last for more than a few breaths. The outer sky waterfall is thousands of feet high and falls vertically. Its power is very terrifying and strange. Once someone tries to completely cut it off, its power will soar to a whole new level in a breath. Usually, only experts practice here. If it weren't for the ranking competition, there would be more people here. Senior brother Chen Hao, let us see it. Senior apprentice brother Chen Hao, come, everyone's out. A female disciple looked at Chen Hao with a face full of adoration. Okay, I'll give it a try. Chen Hao's arrogance was aroused by the advanced disciple's words. As he spoke, his figure flashed and he stepped out, appearing in the center of the pool. Water was indeed not ordinary water. It had great buoyancy and was several times denser than ordinary water. It was somewhat similar to the moat of Xianhuang ancient city. Chen Hao didn't immediately draw his sword. Instead, he released his mind and sensed the aura of the outer sky waterfall. Chapter 225. 1 minute, 2 minutes. 10 minutes. After a full 10 minutes, not only did Chen Hao's aura not rise in the slightest, it even completely disappeared from everyone's senses. If it wasn't for the fact that they could see Chen Hao with their eyes, they probably wouldn't even think that there was someone there. After 15 minutes, Chen Hao, who seemed to have fallen into deep thought, finally emitted a fierce aura, and the expression on his face flickered with a wisp of strong excitement. This is simply a holy land for me to practice my carving skills. It can change 1,000 times in an instant, and its power is vigorous. Let's try it first. Clang. The spirit sword was unsheathed, and Chen Hao's majestic and terrifying fusion energy suddenly spread out. He slashed horizontally in front of the waterfall, separated by dozens of feet. The extremely condensed sword qi, with Chen Hao as the core, radiated and condensed into a curtain of light, cutting straight at the waterfall. The onlooking disciples suddenly widened their eyes in anticipation and excitement, especially those inexperienced junior disciples. This was the first time they saw someone who dared to test his sword, and they were full of expectations for Chen Hao. Several senior disciples, including the one who spoke to Chen Hao just now, were also looking forward to it, but deep in their hearts, they did not have much hope. After all, Chen Hao's strength was in his combat strength, and flying was absolute power. In their opinion at this moment, Chen Hao could only cut half of the waterfall and maintain it for one breath. At the level of Li Long, it was probably the limit. After all, Li Long was still stronger than Chen Hao in terms of absolute power. Moreover, Chen Hao would definitely be in a difficult situation. This was inevitable, because anyone who tried to cut the waterfall would suffer a terrifying energy backlash. The stronger the sword tester, the longer the sword test, and the stronger the waterfall's power. It would become stronger as the cultivator became stronger. Even if it was a cultivator at the peak of the golden elixir stage, it was equivalent to fighting with a cultivator who was stronger than them. The only difference was that when you gave up, the power of the waterfall would also disappear. Cut it all. Senior Chen Hao wants to cut it all at once without even trying. I'm afraid it will be very difficult. Several senior disciples whispered when they saw the range of Chen Hao's sword qi. When Chen Hao's light screen was about to cut the waterfall, he let out a clear shout. The speed of the sword energy suddenly increased by several times, and at the same time, it became stronger. If you cut the water with a knife, the water will flow even more. In order to sever this 1,000-meter tall and 1,000-meter wide waterfall, In addition to having a vast amount of energy, one must also have a continuous stream of sword qi. Otherwise, it would be impossible to sever the waterfall. In other words, Chen Hao's sword qi light screen had to be completely seamless, and it had to be within a range of 300 meters. At the same time, this sword qi light screen had to be strong enough. Otherwise, the falling waterfall would definitely instantly pierce through it. Success. It can't be. When the 100 wide waterfall suddenly split in half from a height of several hundred zhang above the pool, countless splashes of water splashed out on the sword qi light screen, emitting a dazzling radiance under the sunlight. The surrounding disciples immediately let out cries of surprise. One breath. In just one breath's time, the sword qi light screen controlled by Chen Hao's mind was directly shattered by the terrifying energy that was suddenly more than twice as powerful. At the same time, there was a huge energy explosion, and numerous water swords shot out like sword lights, slashing towards Chen Hao. What a terrifying power! Chen Hao was shocked in his heart, yet his figure drifted indeterminately, and he moved back and forth between the numerous water arrows in an extremely natural and unrestrained manner while twisting strangely. This similarly continued for the time of a breath of time before the water arrows vanished, and Chen Hao stood there leisurely. He still stood at his original position, and there wasn't the slightest trace of water on his clothes while his long hair fluttered with the wind, causing him to be extremely refreshed. Obviously, not a single drop of water had landed on him. Just when everyone was in shock, Chen Hao suddenly attacked again. The result was the same as the first attack. Although Chen Hao used all his strength, he still could not hold on for more than one breath's time, and the terrifying power broke through the sword light and attacked him. Helplessly shaking his head, Chen Hao's figure flashed, and he flew up on a cloud. Glancing at the shocked crowd, he said, "Thank you for letting me win. You can continue to cultivate. This outer sky waterfall is indeed a holy place for cultivation." After finishing his words, Chen Hao ignored the crowd's persuasion and compliments and left in a flash. 2 breaths' time is not something I can resist at all. It seems that I have to at least improve by 1 or even 2 levels. Of course, if I continuously attack with my sword, it might be possible, but then it will not be just one attack. This place is really good. It's a pity that there are too many people. Let's wait until the 7 Stars Cave comes out. Chen Hao thought to himself. He had a strong interest in this outer sky waterfall. The ever-changing life trajectory was a holy place for him to cultivate his carving skills, and the strange power that it contained that could constantly increase was also an excellent place for him to refine his realm. Chen Hao knew very well that if he could hold on for 2 breaths' time and increase the power of the waterfall to another level, the water arrow when it exploded would be even more terrifying. It would not be as easy to resist as it was now. She should have left, right? Chen Hao thought to himself as he slowly landed in front of his palace. He directly pushed open the palace door. "Chen Hao." "Ah? Little Yen, why are you still bathing?" Chen Hao was caught off guard by Tan Tai Lian's angry voice that came directly from the bathroom. If he had known this would happen, he would have opened the palace's restriction in advance. "I'll go take a look. Come back, don't go. I don't have any clothes." Tan Tai Lian was hiding in the bathroom. She was so anxious that she stomped her feet and shouted anxiously. Her previous clothes had long been torn and lost in the many battles. The star-picking robe of the star-picking sect was said to be impervious to fire, water, and dirt. There was only one set, and it would not get dirty or spoiled when worn. Because of this, Tan Tai Lian did not have any outer clothes in her storage ring other than some chest wraps and underwear. She did not buy any clothes either. This was because no one would have expected that the star-picking robe would be burned. What should I do then? I have quite a lot of clothes, but they don't suit you. Why don't you wait for a while? I'll go find Elder Wu and see if he can get another set of star-picking robe for you. Don't worry, I'll be back soon. Remember to clean my bathtub. You get lost, go now. I'm going. Chen Hao screamed and rushed out of the cultivation room. Damn it, even he had forgotten something. At this moment, he was not wearing the star-picking robe. Even if he wanted to get away with it, If Tan Tai Lien saw that he did not have the star-picking robe, wouldn't it be obvious that he was lying? After Chen Hao left quickly, Tan Tai Lien, who was wearing a small doo-doo and panties, her fair skin, slender legs, and slender waist were all exposed. She was angry and embarrassed, and her face was flushed red. She bit her lip hard and cursed Chen Hao's shamelessness. After making sure that Chen Hao had left, Tan Tai Lien lowered her head and sniffed her arms, body, and underarms. After making sure that there was no stench other than the faint fragrance of a virgin, she felt a little more at ease. Then she sniffed around the bathtub again. There seemed to be no smell. Will there be a smell outside and in the cultivation room? Tan Tai Lien was so ashamed that she wanted to die. Although she was very angry with Chen Hao, she did not want to let Chen Hao smell the stench that even she could not stand. It was too embarrassing. Standing on her bare feet, Tan Tai Lien pushed open the bathroom door and quickly walked into the hall. She took a deep breath and then another. There's nothing. The palace has a purification function. How can there be any smell? Tan Tai Lien said. But as she spoke, she quickly walked into the cultivation room. After making sure that there was no stench, she quickly returned to the bathroom and waited. More than 10 minutes later, a sound came from the palace door again. This star-picking robe is not as good as you think. It can't even get rid of the stench. You should prepare a few more clothes. Not everyone is like me, who doesn't get close to women. I got 2 for you. Also, remember to throw away the dirty one. Don't leave the bathroom with me, Chen Hao said seriously. At this moment, he had already put on a new star-picking robe. As he spoke, he activated his energy and sent Tan Tai Lien's star-picking robe to the bathroom door. Tan Tai Lien opened a crack and sent out a spiritual tendril. She did not even dare to show her head and quickly put it on. After making sure that there was no problem, she was furious. She pushed open the bathroom door with a bang. Her beautiful eyes glared fiercely at Chen Hao, who was leaning lazily on the chair with his back to her. Her figure flashed and she rushed over. Don't mess around. You're no match for me. Chen Hao did not move. When Tan Lien rushed to the back of his chair, he said, There's still a little smell. Nonsense. I'm not done with you. Tan Tai Lien was so angry that she did not care whether Chen Hao was strong or not. She directly activated a majestic and terrifying spiritual power. Her hands grabbed the chair as fast as lightning and sent Chen Hao flying. Swoosh swoosh. Chen Hao and the chair became one. After circling in the air for 2 rounds, he slowly and steadily landed on the ground. He faced Tan Tai Lien and did not change his sitting posture. He said, I'm talking about the fragrance. Why are you so agitated? You, go back to your palace. There are 2 more days before you enter the 7-star grotto heaven. Cultivation is more important. Looking at Tan Tai Lien's angry face, Chen Hao's tone finally became gentler as he spoke. After he finished speaking, he did not give Tan Tai Lien a chance to speak. His figure flashed and he rushed into the cultivation room. You dare to let me go? In your dreams. Tan Tai Lien snorted and thought to herself. She gritted her teeth and rushed into Chen Hao's cultivation room. What are you doing? Chen Hao, who had already sat cross-legged, asked Tan Tai Lien, who followed him. Boom. Tan Tai Lien's answer to Chen Hao was a crazily soaring battle intent. In an instant, terrifying and pure spiritual tendrils spread out. Her clothes fluttered without any wind. Tan Tai Lien rose into the air along with the burning flames. Clang. She unsheathed her treasured sword and held it in front of her chest. Do you want to fight? That's good. You do need to vent. Chen Hao's lips curled up slightly. His black eyes were as bright as the stars, but there was a trace of evil charm in them as he spoke calmly. First update. Chapter 226. Originally, Chen Hao didn't have much interest. After all, Tan Tai Lien had just obtained the complete inheritance of the Phoenix and had advanced to the 2nd grade of the Intent Saint Realm. No matter if it was her physical body or her strength, they had both received a shocking increase. She indeed needed a great battle to vent. However, at this moment, the words sounded different to Tan Tai Lien's ears, especially when she saw Chen Hao's current expression. In her anger, Tandai Lien shouted and waved her sword at Chen Hao without the slightest scruple. Phoenix Heaven-Burning Sword. After receiving the complete Phoenix Inheritance, Tandai Lien had also received the complete set of the Phoenix Inheritance. Furthermore, she could use it alone. Originally, Chen Hao and Tandai Lien could use this sword technique together. However, if they wanted to unleash its true power, they would have to merge their yin and yang together. Their hearts and minds were connected, and there were no barriers between them. However, at this moment, if Tandai Lien was using it alone, there was no such problem. With a swing of his sword, numerous Nirvana flame dragons whistled out and covered the entire cultivation room. After that, they were like a single spark that set a prairie ablaze, transforming into a sea of flames that covered the sky as they attacked Chen Hao from all directions. Chen Hao was very clear that if an expert of the same level as Tandai Lien encountered this move, they would have a headache. They would probably be defeated in one move. Just the terrifying Nirvana fire alone was enough for an upper-grade martial sage to use his full strength to block it. However, the most terrifying thing was not the Nirvana fire. Instead, it was the sword light formed by Tandai Lien's energy and the Nirvana fire amidst the flames. This was the real killing move. In this narrow space, Chen Hao had no way of dodging. He had no other choice but to take it head-on. Of course, Tandai Lien's angry attack seemed to be nothing to Chen Hao. If you have the ability, use the same level of energy as me. Just as Chen Hao was about to attack, Tandai Lien said confidently. She was smart. Although she was proud of her current strength, she knew that she was no threat to the abnormal Chen Hao. After all, Chen Hao was already a first-grade divine martial sage. In terms of cultivation level, he was much higher than her. Furthermore, his combat power was so abnormal. No problem. Feel free to make your move. I guarantee that you'll be sincerely convinced and impressed. Chen Hao said arrogantly. As he spoke, he indeed retracted his vigorous energy. His two palms suddenly struck out, and 18 huge dragons that also seemed to be condensed from flames instantly roared out. 13 of them circled around him, blocking the sea of fire and sword light that filled the sky. 5 of them violently charged towards Tandai Lien. Shameless boasting. Break. Tandai Lien said confidently when she sensed the sharp decrease in Chen Hao's energy. Her powerful control ability was fully displayed at this moment. She swung her sword again and again. At the same time, the sword light that was about to slash Chen Hao's body strangely intertwined with Chen Hao's dragon palm force under her control. Hiss hiss hiss. Chen Hao's 5 huge dragons that were attacking Tandai Lien were actually the same as Tandai Lien's sword light that was attacking Chen Hao. Under Chen Hao's control, they didn't choose to clash head-on. Instead, they moved forward. It directly turned their battle into a competition of energy control. This made Tandai Lien grit her teeth in anger. However, she had to admit that Chen Hao's spiritual power was terrifying. She, Li Yifeng, and the others already knew this when they were in the divine martial ruins. It was just that Chen Hao had never really shown it to them. Tandai Lien could feel that her 13 sword lights were completely blocked by Chen Hao's 13 huge dragons. Even the Nirvana flame couldn't penetrate them at all. The strength of their energy was exactly the same as hers. However, Chen Hao's 5 huge dragons that were attacking her continued to advance. It was as if they were spears that were about to pierce through. She was busy dealing with them. Obviously, she was still inferior to Chen Hao in the area of control. Explode. Tandai Lien decisively gave up on the competition of control. She didn't want to tangle with Chen Hao and directly detonated her sword lights. The exploding sword lights immediately turned into raging Nirvana flames. They crazily gathered into a huge crimson sword light and charged toward Chen Hao in an unstoppable manner. Close. Rip. Almost at the same time, the 18 huge dragons that Chen Hao had formed also gathered into one and violently met Tandai Lien's huge sword light. Rumble. The huge explosion resounded in the cultivation room, causing Chen Hao's entire palace to tremble violently. Terrifying heat waves filled every inch of space in the cultivation room. If it was an ordinary person, just this heat wave alone would be enough to turn them into ashes. Phoenix Nirvana, Heaven-Burning Sword. The two strange cries that resounded through the heavens and earth were suddenly heard. The shadow of a phoenix that was entwined in one body flew out from the top of Tan Tai Lien's head at this moment. With a rip, it merged into Tan Tai Lien's sword. The color of the sword immediately turned red, like a red-hot stick. Extremely mysterious runes were condensed on the surface of the sword. Let's see how you block it. No way? Is this possible? Chen Hao was shocked. Tan Tai Lien's peak sword was indeed very powerful. However, Chen Hao was not shocked by this, but by Tan Tai Lien's rascality. This bitch actually completely gave up on defense and treated herself as a dead object. She directly charged over violently. Moreover, in an instant, all her essence, energy, and spirit were condensed on the sword. Under the premise of restricting his own energy, Chen Hao had 10,000 ways to kill Tan Tai Lien. However, there was no way to break this sword without killing Tan Tai Lien. What else could he do other than take it head-on? However, if he were to take it head-on, Chen Hao's restricted energy at this moment didn't seem to be as powerful as the combination of Tan Tai Lien and the Phoenix Inheritance. The speed was very fast. It was so fast that Chen Hao had no way to dodge or hide. At this moment, Chen Hao's mind turned rapidly. Tan Tai Lien was a rascal and Chen Hao could only accept it. He couldn't kill her. To be exact, this was Tan Tai Lien taking advantage of his weakness. She was also confident that Chen Hao wouldn't do that. Then, this condition was eliminated. As for the others, was he going to be injured by this bitch? If that was the case, wouldn't what he said just now be boasting shamelessly? Pig! Seeing that the sword was about to reach him, Chen Hao had a flash of inspiration. His palms shook and suddenly slapped out. Crash! Boom 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 boom. At this moment, Chen Hao's powerful mental energy control caused his palm energy to transform into a waterfall from the heavens. It was like a thick water arrow that emitted a crashing sound. The strength was not strong, but it was continuous and continuous. The sound of the explosion was also not loud, but it also became a line. Chen Hao's attack couldn't be used in a real battle. This was because it was completely disregarding the cost and continuously exhausting his energy. Moreover, it didn't have much power and couldn't cause any serious damage to the enemy. However, at this moment, in this special battle, Chen Hao's attack was useful. Not only could it ensure Tan Tai Lien's safety, it could also continuously exhaust the energy of Tan Tai Lien's attack. It wouldn't take long. As long as it was within Chen Hao's range of endurance, Chen Hao would be able to break it without being injured. However, to Chen Hao's surprise, Tan Tai Lien's powerful attack suddenly disappeared. Before Chen Hao's flowing energy touched Tan Tai Lien's body, she spat out a mouthful of blood and flew out. In shock, Chen Hao didn't care about limiting his energy. He directly turned into a stream of light and caught up with Tan Tai Lien, who was about to hit the wall. What are you doing? You bastard! Tan Tai Lien broke free from Chen Hao and said angrily. After saying that, she didn't fight anymore. She turned around and walked out of the training room. Chen Hao chased after her and said, "You made a mistake in judgment. What does it have to do with me?" I made a mistake in judgment? You did it on purpose? Tan Tai Lien turned around and said angrily. After saying that, she turned into a stream of light and left quickly while enduring the serious injury. Looking at Tan Tai Lien's disappearing figure, Chen Hao revealed a smile that Tan Tai Lien had never seen before. He muttered, "Women are really unreasonable. You're clearly a scoundrel, but you don't allow others to be a scoundrel. Besides, am I a scoundrel? I was just a little late." It wasn't just a little late. Although Tan Tai Lien really wanted to beat Chen Hao up, when her sword was about to reach him, she saw that Chen Hao still didn't show any signs of attacking. He just stared at her, and her heart softened. If Chen Hao had really let her attack him, no matter how abnormal Chen Hao was, he would probably have been turned into slag. How would she dare to hesitate? At the critical moment, she could only violently withdraw her attack, not caring about the backlash. From Tan Tai Lien's point of view, Chen Hao was acting like a scoundrel just like her. He knew that she wouldn't kill him, so he deliberately didn't attack. As for Chen Hao's weak attack at the end, It was directly ignored by her. Why bother? You've already done it and you still have to pretend. Even if you want to pretend, you should be more impressive. Do you think that kind of attack can block my attack? Therefore, after Tan Tai Lien dragged her heavily injured body back to her palace, she didn't feel relieved. Instead, she felt even angrier. The more she thought about it, the more aggrieved she felt. If it wasn't for the fact that she had to enter the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven in 2 days' time, Tan Tai Lien wouldn't even be in the mood to recuperate. In the blink of an eye, 2 days had passed. After Tan Tai Lien left, Chen Hao directly entered into a state of cultivation. The short period of lingering and charming caused ripples in the lake of his heart, and then he immersed himself in the depths of his heart and couldn't cause any more ripples. Cultivation, becoming stronger, and everything else, at least for a short period of time, were just fleeting clouds to him. If he wanted to achieve immortality and protect his family and friends, he had to constantly become stronger and reach the peak. This was his obsession. The obsession to look down on the world and win the glory of the strong. He could stay for a short period of time, but nothing could stop him from moving forward. At this moment, the liquid energy in Chen Hao's Dantian was like the Yangtze River and the sea, surging endlessly. Moreover, it was several times more condensed than when he first obtained Ito Ta's nascent soul. There was a trace of stickiness and condensation. Ito Ta's nascent soul was constantly splitting out wisps of energy, which became the target of Chen Hao's refinement. 2 days, only 2 days. After experiencing the challenge in the arena and entering a state of cultivation, Chen Hao finally made a breakthrough and his strength improved by leaps and bounds. He finally succeeded in comprehending the high-level energy of the nascent soul. Chapter 227. Originally, Ito Ta's nascent soul was a bomb that could shatter him at any time for Chen Hao. But now, it had become Chen Hao's elixir. Moreover, it contained extremely pure energy. Even if it contained a demonic aura, it was a good thing for Chen Hao to train his mind when refining. It was obviously impossible to eat it in one bite, but with the suppression of the mysterious runes, it was equivalent to a large number of elixirs that could be used at any time and stored in Chen Hao's Dantian. When the nascent soul was completely used up by Chen Hao, it was also the moment when Ito Ta's soul was completely destroyed. Phew! Chen Hao let out a long sigh and opened his eyes. The peak of the 2nd stage of the divine level only comprehended the high-level energy for a little more than a day. Not bad. With the energy provided by the nascent soul, 3 months in the 7 Stars Cave Heaven should be enough for me to break through to the 9th stage of the divine level, or even the golden elixir realm. Chen Hao murmured with a trace of excitement on his face. It's time to go to the star-picking peak. I wonder if that girl is still angry. After Chen Hao finished speaking, he quickly left the palace. The palaces of Tan Tai Lien, Li Yifeng, Yang Fan, and Ni Jianpain were not far away from Chen Hao and could be seen directly from the void. Releasing his own aura, Chen Hao sensed that the restriction on Tan Tai Lien's palace was still activated, so she must still be in the palace. After a slight hesitation, Chen Hao flew to Tan Tai Lien's palace and knocked on the door. Is this how you knock on the door? Immediately, Tan Tai Lien opened the door and stared at Chen Hao. Let's go. Chen Hao looked calm and ignored Tan Tai Lien's words. After that, he domineeringly released a stream of energy that wrapped around Tan Tai Lien and rose into the air. Tan Tai Lien struggled for a while but to no avail. She could only stare fiercely at Chen Hao, who acted as if nothing had happened. After a while, she finally returned to normal. The sun had risen from the west for Chen Hao to come and ask her to go with him. Although he was still domineering, rude, and unreasonable, but the anger in Tan Tai Lien's heart disappeared, and she even felt a little satisfied. This feeling made Tan Tai Lien despise herself a little. He had only called her once. What was there to be satisfied about? Whoosh! Chen Hao brought Tan Tai Lien with him as they flew across the sky like flowing light. He pushed his speed to the limit. Without the guidance of the token, he only needed to look at the highest peak at the core of the Jiaxing sect that reached into the sky to confirm that it was the Jiaxing peak. It only took them a few minutes to cover the distance of several hundred miles and they landed on the peak of the towering mountain. Under the guidance of an old man, the two of them entered the depths of a large courtyard filled with palaces. The star-picking sect master, Yuan Tairan, several inner sect elders, and the outer sect 10 great elders had already arrived. By the time Chen Hao and his companion arrived, more than half of the 30 disciples had already arrived. When they saw Chen Hao and Tan Tai Lian, Chen Hao didn't think much of it. However, Tan Tai Lian's aura of stepping into the intense saint level immediately attracted the attention of the sect master, all the elders, and the disciples who had already arrived. They were all shocked and astonished. Tan Tai Lian's mental strength was far beyond that of a first-grade intense saint. She seemed to have reached the peak of the low-grade intense saint level. 3 days ago, Tan Tai Lian was still a low-grade disciple of the 8th grade intense sect. In just 3 days, she had advanced to the intense saint level. Moreover, she was not just a first-grade intense saint. How could she advance so quickly? Only Elder Wu looked at Chen Hao with an extremely strange gaze. He thought to himself, why didn't this kid's aura increase by much? The dual cultivation of the Phoenix legacy should be able to increase a lot regardless of the level. Tan Tai Lian has obviously advanced by several grades. He should have at least advanced by 2 or 3 grades, right? However, Chen Hao's aura was still that of a low-grade martial god. Compared to Tan Tai Lian's, the increase was obviously very small. Maybe this kid's talent is too abnormal and he needs too much energy. Elder Wu thought to himself when he thought of the intensity of Chen Hao's energy. It seemed that this was the only explanation. In this old man's opinion, Chen Hao and Tan Tai Lian had truly begun the fusion of yin and yang. He knew when he gave Chen Hao the reward, but he was not sure. However, when Chen Hao asked him for the star-plucking robe and 2 sets of it from Tan Tai Lian, this old man was completely sure. At that time, he even reminded Chen Hao not to be immersed in love and to pay attention to dual cultivation. After all, the fusion of yin and yang was also a form of cultivation. However, many young men and women would often be immersed in the joy of the physical body and forget to cultivate. However, only Wu Zichuan was surprised by Chen Hao. The others were surprised by Tan Tai Lian's improvement. In their hearts, Tan Tai Lian and Chen Hao should have been Dao companions with the fusion of yin and yang. Naturally, they did not have Wu Zichuan's thoughts. Alright, everyone is here. The 7-star grotto heaven is about to open. Among those present, Li Long and Yi Wendao have entered the 2nd level. There are also a few who have entered the 1st and 2nd levels. All of you are already aware of the 7-star grotto heaven situation. I'll repeat myself. Regardless of whether it's the 1st level, the 2nd level, or the 3rd level, there is no difference in essence. The only difference is the quantity and intensity of the heavenly Tao nomological laws. A few minutes later, when all 30 qualified disciples had arrived, Yuan Tairan said slowly, as for the heavenly Tao nomological laws, it's not something that can be forcefully comprehended. Everything depends on one's luck and perception. It's best to let nature take its course. The most important thing is to refine and absorb the rich and pure energy. The energy in the 3 levels is the same, and there is no difference. Your main goal is to raise your cultivation base. 3 months will be a period of bitter meditation for all of you. You will enter a sealed space and lose all contact with the outside world. How much you can improve depends on you. The 7-star grotto heaven is actually not as simple as you think. Unfortunately, even after 1,000 years, no one has been able to open a higher level. Sect Master, is there more than 3 levels in the 7-star grotto heaven? A disciple could not help but ask. What is the 7-star grotto heaven? You can only see 1 star on each level. The 3rd level only has 3 stars. There are 4 more stars, so there might be 4 more levels. It's a pity that our star-picking sect, including me and the secluded Grand Elders, were unable to comprehend the mysteries within when we were young. Even now, we have only opened 3 levels of the 7-star grotto heaven. If the 7-star grotto heaven could be fully opened, our star-picking sect would have long broken away from the title of a 3rd-grade sect. Work hard, all of you. Perhaps the opportunity lies within you. Whoosh! A moment later, a brilliant light suddenly rose from an open space in the middle of the crowd. A series of mysterious runes condensed on the hard rock ground, like a painting, and soon appeared clearly in front of everyone. Among the huge runes, there were 10 circular openings that could fit one person. The 10 disciples of the first level enter the circular openings. Elders, get ready, Yuan Tairan said in a deep voice. Tan Tai Lian glanced at Chen Hao and quickly entered the runes. The moment the 10 people entered the circular openings, Yuan Tairan and the elders immediately sent out a ray of energy into the runes. There was a violent fluctuation in the space, and 10 light pillars appeared. Tan Tai Lian and the others disappeared before everyone's eyes. The runes changed on their own, and the dense lines had slight differences. The disciples of the second level, enter. It's your turn, all of you enter. Chen Hao felt the space around him distort. His vision, hearing, and perception were temporarily blocked. When he opened his eyes again, he was already in a strange space. It was dark night. It was pitch black all around. He could not see anything except for a bright star in front of him. The star was very bright, but it could not penetrate the darkness. Chen Hao could only see one star. As for the rest, he was completely clueless. His night vision was useless. It was true darkness. There was not a trace of light, and it could not reflect light. Was it air, liquid energy, or solid energy? Chen Hao did not know, and he could not judge. He only felt that his body was filled with extremely pure and dense energy. It was liquid energy, but when Chen Hao moved his body, he could not feel any movement of water. It was air, but when he breathed it into his lungs, he felt like he had breathed in heavy water. It could be metal, but it felt solid. Li Long, Yi Wendao, and the others, who had already entered the 7 Stars Paradise, did not hesitate and immediately began to cultivate. Yi Wendao, in particular, had a crazy and burning gaze. He, who was already half a step to the Golden Core realm, did not suppress his aura anymore. He immediately began to break through to the Golden Core realm. The humiliation and unwillingness of fighting to a draw with Chen Hao had tainted his slaughter sword Dao, which had been advancing bravely, with dust. If he couldn't truly defeat Chen Hao or even kill him, then there would always be a shadow in his heart of slaughter, and it would have a huge negative impact on his cultivation. Therefore, in these 3 months, he had to improve crazily. As for the so-called heavenly Tao, just as the sect leader said, he would let nature take its course. What should belong to him, he could naturally comprehend through cultivation. What did not belong to him, he could not obtain it even if he forced it. This was fate and destiny. He believed that his fate and destiny were never worse than anyone else's. At least, no one in the star-picking sect could compare to him. Phew. Such dense and pure energy. No wonder everyone is fighting to get in. This is equivalent to an endless supply of high-grade elixirs. It all depends on how much you can refine and absorb. Even the nascent soul can be saved, Chen Hao exclaimed in his heart. But he still did not start cultivating. Instead, he focused his gaze on the star that was still bright and dazzling in the endless darkness. Even though no starlight could shine on Chen Hao's body, Chen Hao could still sense the mysterious aura from the star. Without a doubt, this was the so-called heavenly Tao. Unfortunately, when Chen Hao deliberately tried to sense it, this aura disappeared. It was like a game of hide-and-seek, unfathomable, fleeting, and distant. It was also like the moon in the water. He had only probed it for a moment before it completely disappeared. Third update. Begging for votes, recommending votes, the number of votes is decreasing. Dark Mountain is in chaos. How sad. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 228. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Chen Hao tried to release his perception, but other than his own body, it could not spread out at all. It was completely blocked by the endless darkness. He also tried to merge with everything in the world to sense the life trajectory and texture of the thick energy, but the result was the same. The endless darkness seemed to be able to block everything. It was impossible to explore the mysteries within. The 7 Stars Grotto Heaven has been passed down in the star-picking sect for 1,000 years. Even the sect master and the legendary Grand Elder were unable to decipher its mysteries. If I could decipher it so easily, it wouldn't make sense. Chen Hao thought to himself. He was not discouraged. 7 stars, 7 stars, could it be related to the Big Dipper Formation? In Chen Hao's mind, the Big Dipper Formation recorded in the Taoist secrets appeared. He immediately shook his head. Whether it was related or not, for the time being, he could not control it. He had tried using his mental strength, perception, merging with everything in the world, etc. He could not sense the slightest bit of aura. Even if there was a connection, what could he do? If he could not sense the mysteries within, he could not make any progress, let alone break through. Let's cultivate first. If it's mine, it can't run away. If it's not mine, I can't force it. Thinking of this, Chen Hao no longer hesitated. He sat cross-legged, faced the stars, and slowly closed his eyes. Soon, he was immersed in a deep level of cultivation, forgetting everything around him. This pure and thick energy, like thousands of streams flowing into the sea, passed through the pores of his body and gathered at an astonishing speed in Chen Hao's dantian. Refining, all of his mind was integrated into the crazy refining. What made Chen Hao slightly happy was that this kind of pure energy, like gas, like water, and like solid, was easy to refine and the speed was extremely fast. In less than an hour, Chen Hao's dantian, meridians, and every cell in his body were filled with energy. Obviously, he had reached the limit of his capacity. However, Chen Hao did not stop. He continued to refine, enduring pain that exceeded his limits, and constantly compressed the surging energy in his dantian. 2 hours passed, 4 hours passed, phew. When he felt that he could no longer absorb the slightest bit of energy, Chen Hao let out a long sigh and opened his eyes. The stars were still there, and the scenery around him had not changed at all. At this moment, it's possible to break through the God level by force. Forget it, it's not even 6 hours. There I have time. My foundation, it's time. Chen Hao in his heart, he took a deep breath, his mind, the martial arts, and his mind, in this cave, he practiced the martial arts, and was in this cave. What made Chen Hao astonished was that, although his body's movements were no different from when he was in the outside world, when he activated his energy, performed his martial arts, and punched and waved his palms, it was as if he was immersed in sticky glue. He was greatly obstructed, and his speed and prowess were reduced by more than 10 times. It became extremely difficult. What Chen Hao had wanted to do was to use the fastest speed possible to deplete all of his energy. With no one to battle with, he could only do this by himself. Only by repeatedly releasing, refining, and absorbing his energy would he be able to continuously push his limits. Only then would he be able to make his powers increasingly powerful. When the time came, he would naturally be able to break through the barrier and advance to the 3rd grade of the divine level. However, with this discovery, while Chen Hao was astonished, he also felt unusually excited. Practicing the sword and cultivating in the water was an excellent cultivation method to begin with. If he could move freely in the water, then once he was on the ground, the prowess and speed he displayed would increase by several times. When he was on earth, when he cultivated the solitary sword technique and other martial arts, he had done it in the water. Moreover, as his strength increased, he had also used advanced technology such as the gravitational field. However, after coming to this world with the strength of his physical body, the richness of the energy of heaven and earth, and the level of his previous state of mind, he was naturally able to perform all kinds of martial arts. He only needed a short period of adaptation to be able to unleash power that was far stronger than what he had been on earth. Therefore, all this while, although Chen Hao had also specially cultivated martial arts when he was on his own, he had never trained as fiercely as he had on earth. The first reason was that the water resistance was negligible to him. The second reason was that even the cleverest housewife could not cook without rice. In this world of martial arts, it was impossible for him to rely on his own strength to create any high-tech things. There was no need, nor was he interested. Now, The magical resistance of the 7 stars grotto heaven made Chen Hao excited. He was so excited that he forgot his main purpose and directly immersed himself in the cultivation of the solitary sword technique. Starting from the simplest sword move, he repeated the same action mechanically over and over again. In the beginning, under the terrifying resistance, Chen Hao's sword was very, very slow. Even the direction of the sword being squeezed would deviate. However, Chen Hao was not tired of it. He forgot everything and only had cultivation in his heart. Only the sword was left. He constantly sensed the changes in the resistance and subtly changed the way he used his energy, the posture of the sword, the path, little by little. 2 hours, 4 hours, half a day. After an entire day, the speed of Chen Hao's sword was obviously much faster and more stable than before. Although Chen Hao did not have the opportunity to go outside to test his sword, he knew that his realm of swordsmanship had definitely improved. Phew, this sword is almost done. It's time for the second sword. How could I forget about the important matter? At this time, Chen Hao remembered that the main purpose of coming to the 7 stars grotto heaven was to refine his energy and improve his realm, not to practice his sword. But, although that was what he said, Chen Hao wanted to practice his swordsmanship here even more. After all, such an environment was also something that could only be found by chance. If he missed it, it would be gone. Where would he find such a good place to practice his swordsmanship in the future? Refining energy and improving his realm. Although it was bad outside, there were elixirs, primordial crystal stones, and there was another sacred place for cultivation. Anyway, I have to squander all my energy. Refining and practicing my swordsmanship together will do. No. At this point, Chen Hao suddenly realized that he had practiced for a full 12 hours and the energy in his body had not been consumed at all. Not only that, but it had also improved. Especially the liquid energy in his dantian, it seemed to have become a little more condensed. What was going on? The surprised Chen Hao hurriedly sat cross-legged and carefully sensed the situation in his dantian. After a while, he finally confirmed that the quality of his energy had improved. Although it was only a little, Chen Hao knew what this meant. Liquid energy. Since he had refined the energy in his body into a liquid state, there had been no improvement. It was not until 2 days ago when he comprehended the high-level energy of the nascent soul that the liquid energy in his dantian had become a little more condensed and dense. Obviously, it was not a simple matter to make the energy more condensed. But now, through practicing his swordsmanship, the energy in his dantian had magically condensed. What is the effect of exhausting my energy and condensing it again? Chen Hao thought excitedly. Without any hesitation, he instantly launched a series of violent attacks. Every punch, every palm strike, and every sword strike was filled with boundless and terrifying energy. What he wanted to do was to use up all of his energy in the shortest amount of time possible to completely refine and recover the energy in his body. Although it was only a little condensed, Chen Hao believed that as long as this little bit of energy was completely refined, it would definitely allow him to advance to the 3rd grade of the divine level. But, even so, Chen Hao used a full hour and still had half of his energy left. It had to be said that the energy in this cave was really too rich and too pure. Even if Chen Hao did not enter meditation to refine it and was consuming it crazily, the speed of its self-recovery had increased by many times. This directly caused the energy that could have been used up in a few minutes to be only half consumed in an hour. No, it's too much of a waste of time. I can't even condense the energy in my body into an attack. How could I forget the insta-kill sword technique? Chen Hao suddenly thought of the unique skill, the insta-kill sword technique, which was rewarded for being tied for first place this time. The insta-kill sword technique, the top sword technique of the innate level. It instantly condenses the power of a lifetime and counterattacks as fast as lightning. It's called an instant kill. Use it with caution. Chen Hao thought of the introduction of the insta-kill sword technique. Without any hesitation, he took out the jade slip from the storage space. No wonder I didn't understand why this reward was given. It turns out that it's to allow the 7 stars cave to consume its energy faster and save time. No, if it's for this, It should have been given to us to cultivate earlier. After all, no unique skill can be comprehended in a short time. Of course, this is for ordinary disciples. Fortunately, it's a jade slip, Chen Hao said confidently. In the endless darkness, Chen Hao could only sense his own body and see the star. He could not see anything else. If it was a secret manual recorded in ordinary words, even if it was in his hands, Chen Hao would not be able to cultivate it. However, the jade slip was different. A wisp of pure energy was injected into the jade slip. Immediately, a wisp of mysterious runes flew directly into the space between Chen Hao's eyebrows. Immediately, the incantation of the insta-kill sword technique, as well as a more detailed explanation, appeared clearly in Chen Hao's mind. I see. After Chen Hao saw the incantation and the detailed explanation, he immediately knew that his judgment was correct. There was only one move in the insta-kill sword technique. When one first started cultivating it, if one was unable to comprehend its mystery, one would not be able to control one's own energy. One move would consume all of one's energy. Only when one truly comprehended it and gradually became familiar with it would be able to control it slightly and use 3 moves consecutively. Only then would it be considered a great success. Being able to control how much energy one move would consume was the pinnacle. After Chen Hao confirmed that there were no mistakes, he took a deep breath. Step by step, he activated his own energy according to the insta-kill sword technique's energy circulation method. Immediately, the energy in his dantian was like a river bursting through a dam. It surged through his meridians and began a special cycle, surging towards the sword in his hand. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The sword began to vibrate violently. Chen Hao felt that his essence, qi, and spirit were being crazily extracted. When it reached the limit of what he could bear, Chen Hao shouted loudly and slashed out with his sword. The first part. Please recommend it. Chapter 229. If this was in the outside world, it would definitely cause a terrifying shockwave. However, in this strange space, Chen Hao, who was one with the sword, only managed to travel a few hundred feet before he stopped due to a huge resistance. There was not even a single ripple in the surroundings. However, he had achieved his goal and exhausted all his energy. Refining his energy, practicing the solitary sword technique, using up all his energy in an instant. Just like this, Chen Hao began to cultivate crazily. His cultivation and combat strength were increasing at a speed that was several times faster than the outside world. The energy he breathed in and out became more and more vigorous and majestic. In another sealed area on the 3rd level. In the pitch-black space, sounds of air being pierced could be heard. A terrifying killing aura could not spread out in this special space. However, wherever the sword passed, ripples would appear, as if it was trying to break through the restrictions of the surrounding energy. Such a terrifying power was not something Chen Hao could compare to. Golden Core Realm. Only after entering the Golden Core Realm could one be so terrifying. After Yi Wenwen entered the 3rd level of the Heavenly Abode, he, who was half a step away from the Golden Core Realm, broke through the barrier and entered the Golden Core Realm in less than 4 hours. A huge door of cultivation was opened for him. The energy he absorbed with every breath was several times that of the Xiantian realm. Yi Wenwen was sure that his strength had increased by more than 8 times at this moment. The red golden core in his dantian rotated slowly. With a slight thought, he could release a terrifying energy that could topple mountains and overturn seas. Massacre Sword Art, 1st Sword, 2nd Sword, 3rd Sword, 9th Sword. Boom. 9 swords connected as his strength increased. When Yi Wenwen executed the 1st sword to the 9th sword, a terrifying explosion suddenly erupted in front of him. The strange space fluctuated violently. Even the stars in front of him, which seemed to be within reach, shook violently at this moment. Rays of starlight actually took advantage of the moment when the sword qi broke through the darkness and poured onto Yi Wenwen's body. At this moment, Yi Wenwen, who had exhausted all his energy, sat cross-legged and entered the state of cultivation again. To his surprise, there was a trace of understanding in his mind. Heavenly Dao Laws. Heavenly Dao Laws. 3 days. In just 3 days, I've captured a strand of Heavenly Dao Laws. I want to see how Chen Hao is going to tie with me. Yi Wendao could no longer suppress the excitement in his heart after he truly came into contact with the heavenly law of the catoptric deflection. Just by advancing to the golden elixir realm, Yi Wendao had absolute confidence that Chen Hao would not be able to retaliate at all under his sword. After all, although Chen Hao's battle prowess was high, he was still only a martial god. Although Yi Wendao did not believe that Chen Hao was only a rank 1 martial god, with Chen Hao's previous cultivation as a reference, he was at most a medial grade martial god. He should not have hidden much. In just 3 months, no matter how abnormal Chen Hao was, he could only be promoted to level 9 martial god at most. After all, the barrier between the martial god realm and the gold elixir realm was not so easy to comprehend. Especially for Chen Hao, who had made a great leap forward, it was even more difficult to comprehend this barrier. No, that might not be the case. Yi Wendao, who was feeling proud in his heart, suddenly began to doubt himself. With Chen Hao's talent and comprehension, he might really be able to advance to the gold elixir realm. After Yi Wendao fought Chen Hao to a draw, although he did not agree with the outcome and attributed it to the sect leader, he had to admit that Chen Hao's strength had exceeded his expectations and had truly attracted his attention. Therefore, he had thoroughly investigated Chen Hao's information. When he thought of how Chen Hao had created miracles since he started from the 100 Empire ranking, he began to feel uncertain. Humph, what am I worried about? So what if he has advanced to the gold elixir realm? Isn't that even better? I can challenge him legitimately and defeat him, or even kill him, to eliminate my inner demons. In 3 months, I will definitely be able to combine the 9 swords of the massacre sword art into one and break through to the 2nd stage. Who can stop me? I am the number 1 genius of the star-picking sect. No one can compare to me. Phew. Letting out a long breath, Yi Wendao directly cut off all distracting thoughts. His state of mind was clear as he calmly immersed himself in tempering and comprehending. The previous sword attack had allowed him to capture a strand of the heavenly Dao law. This had already allowed him to vaguely understand how to comprehend more of the heavenly Dao law. That was to use his strongest attack to break through the endless darkness and be bathed in the starlight. Now, only 3 days had passed. There were still 2 months and 27 days. On the first floor, Tantai Lian was also immersed in cultivating crazily. Having just truly merged with the Phoenix's inheritance, she still had a huge potential that had yet to be unearthed. 2 nirvana flames had already made her physical body stronger than ordinary genius martial sages. Almost all the impurities in her body had been expelled from her body. Such an advantage was definitely unimaginable to ordinary intent martial sages. Once intent martial sages stepped into the martial sage realm, the most difficult thing was tempering the physical body like cultivators. This was also the main reason why intent martial sages were restricted from improving. However, this most difficult thing had become the easiest for Tantai Lian. There was almost no restriction at all. The direct result of this was that Tantai Lian had just stepped into the 7-star cave to cultivate for a day, and her entire body emitted a dense aura. On the 2nd day, it appeared again. On the 4th day, it appeared again. On the 8th day, it appeared again. Chen Hao felt that his improvement was already fast enough. However, if he were to know Tantai Lian's improvement speed, he would probably be so ashamed that he would find a piece of tofu to kill himself. As for Tantai Lian, on the 8th day, which was the 4th time she had advanced, the bright stars actually penetrated the endless darkness on their own. Faint starlight poured onto Tantai Lian's body. A strand of the heavenly Dao law naturally allowed Tantai Lian to have a slight understanding. Tantai Lian did not feel proud at all. Instead, she was still fully immersed in cultivating. It could not be helped. As long as anyone treated Chen Hao as their goal, it would be hard for them to feel proud. In particular, Tantai Lian subconsciously thought that since she could improve so quickly, Chen Hao would definitely be faster than her. What was there to be proud of? However, she did not know that this time, she could really be proud. In the blink of an eye, 3 months passed quickly. This was the last day. The 7 stars grotto heaven would only be open for 3 months. On the last day, the mysterious runes on the Zhaixing Peak would appear again and last for an entire day. The disciples cultivating in the 7 stars grotto heaven would come out of the 7 stars grotto heaven on their own from time to time. They would not come out at the same time. There was no pattern to the order in which they came out. After thousands of years of inheritance, the Zhaixing sect was already clear that this was determined based on one's cultivation situation. Usually, they would come out when they had just finished cultivating. If they were cultivating, they would not be interrupted. Only disciples who had not yet awakened from their cultivation state would be ejected at the same time at the last moment. On this day, early in the morning, the Zhaixing sect master, Yuan Tairan, the inner sect elders, and the outer sect elders all gathered on the Zhaixing Peak. 2 hours later, the mysterious runes finally opened slowly under the expectant gazes of the important figures of the Zhaixing sect. About 15 minutes later, the space above the mysterious rune's core suddenly fluctuated violently. "It's out," an outer sect elder said. Just as he finished speaking, a figure appeared before everyone's eyes. "Greetings, sect master, greetings, elders." The disciple who had just walked out of the 7-star paradise had a trace of excitement on his face as he bowed. This disciple was ranked 6th among the lower disciples, Li Xiaozheng, who had entered the first layer of the paradise. "Xiaozheng, what grade? What did you comprehend?" The elder of the 6th peak asked with anticipation as he sensed Li Xiaozheng's aura. Boom! Li Xiaozheng immediately released his aura. With a trace of joy on his face, he said, "5th grade martial saint, I have comprehended the true essence of the earth attribute." Good. The elder of the 6th peak immediately praised. "Not bad. From a 9th grade martial ancestor to a 5th grade martial saint, you have jumped 5 grades and even comprehended a heavenly law. Such a result is not bad." Yuan Tairan's eyes flashed with admiration and excitement as he spoke. "It seems that this disciple's harvest this time will be great." Many elders thought to themselves. Of course, they knew that the excitement in Yuan Tairan's eyes was not because of Li Xiaozheng. Li Xiaozheng's talent was not bad, but among the 30 disciples, he was only below average. If he could improve so much, then what about the others? Although no one else had come out as a reference, it was at least a good sign. As long as a few more people came out, it would be confirmed. If the people who came out did not improve much, then it could only be said that Li Xiaozheng's performance was outstanding and he had obtained opportunities and luck that others did not have. If all of them were good, then it was really good. After a while, another disciple came out. What made everyone happy and Li Xiaozheng ashamed was that the 7th-ranked disciple who had just entered the 2nd layer of the paradise had also jumped 5 grades, from a 9th grade martial saint to a 5th grade martial god. Furthermore, he had also comprehended a heavenly law. Soon, 6 hours had passed. Out of the 30 disciples, 27 had already come out. The overall improvement of 27 people was better than in previous years. Among the 27 people apart from the higher disciples, the lowest had increased by 3 grades, and the highest had increased by 7 grades. Li Long and the other higher disciples had a total of 8 people. Including Li Long, 4 of them had broken through the Xiantian barrier and stepped into the early golden core realm. Among the 27 people, 10 of them had comprehended a heavenly law. Just the current results had far surpassed in previous years. Not to mention, the 3 people that everyone was looking forward to the most had yet to come out. Once these 3 people came out, if nothing unexpected happened, the overall results would be higher. These 3 people were Yi Wendao, Chen Hao, and Tantai Lian. Everyone, including Yuan Tairan, was looking forward to the cultivation level of these 3 people. This was especially true for Chen Hao and Tantai Lian. It was not that Yi Wendao was inferior to the 2 of them, but that Yi Wendao was a half-step golden core realm cultivator. It was certain that he would enter the golden core realm. However, after entering the golden core realm, his improvement would be limited. At most, he would be at the peak of the early golden core realm. However, Chen Hao and Tantai Lian were different. Chapter 230. There was no doubt about Yi Wendao's talent and comprehension. If Chen Hao did not come to the star-picking door, no one among the outer disciples could compete with him. How much could he improve? It was certain that he could reach the Golden Core Realm. However, it could only be the early stage of the Golden Core Realm. After surpassing the innate realm, one's cultivation progress would become extremely slow. Without sufficient time, opportunity, comprehension, and spiritual pills, it was normal for one to stay in the early stage of the Golden Core Realm for a few years. Even a super genius like Yi Wendao would not be able to improve from the early stage to the middle stage without 1 or 2 years. This was also the reason why people were looking forward to Chen Hao and Tan Tai Lian. They were still far away from the Golden Core Realm and had more room for improvement. In 3 months, could Chen Hao improve from the 1st grade martial god to the 9th grade martial god or the Golden Core Realm? How much could Tan Tai Lian, who was already a 2nd grade martial saint, improve? Time passed by. Seeing that the closing time of the 7 Stars Paradise was getting closer, everyone's expression became more and more expectant. Everyone knew that in a short while, the 3 of them would be forcefully ejected from the 9 Stars Paradise even though they were cultivating. However, the 3rd floor of the 7 Stars Paradise. Only 2 hours were left before the closing time of the 7 Stars Paradise. Massacre Sword Art, 9 swords in 1, break. The man and sword became one, turning into a brilliant sword light that tore apart the endless darkness. It was like a blood-red rainbow that pierced through the stars. Shortly after, the stars emitted a resplendent light and the sword light disappeared. Yi Wendao appeared under a magical night sky. He stared at the 7 stars hanging high in the night sky with an arrogant and excited expression. The 1st floor of the 7 Stars Paradise. Only 1 hour was left before the closing time of the 7 Stars Paradise. Nirvana flame, burn heaven and earth, break. Accompanied by 2 phoenix cries that resounded through the world, raging flames rose up. Tan Tai Lian, who was in the flames of Nirvana, was like a dazzling meteor. She streaked across the endless darkness and charged towards the illusory stars. The stars were resplendent. Tan Tai Lian disappeared into the endless darkness. Did he come in? Tan Tai Lian's beautiful eyes shone with excitement as she stared at the 7 stars in the night sky. Even she did not expect herself to improve so quickly. In just 3 short months, her level had soared. Breaking through Willpower Saint and stepping into Willpower was already beyond her imagination, but in the end, when Tan Tai Lian stepped into the Intent God realm, she had fused the Phoenix inheritance to the 6th step. Tan Tai Lian's physical body had been completely refined into a Nirvana golden body, causing her speed of advancement to soar once again. When the 3 months were about to end, she had unexpectedly broken through to the early stage of the Golden Elixir realm. Furthermore, she had formed a subtle connection with the 7 Stars Paradise, allowing her to understand what she needed to do and how she should do it. And now she had done it. He had stepped into the true 7 Stars Grotto Heaven. It wasn't the 7 floors that the sect master had mentioned, but a separate space. The 7 stars were aligned, blooming together in a space. It was almost the same situation as Yi Wendao. Just as Tan Tai Lian appeared, a figure who had been cultivating for almost an hour suddenly opened his eyes several thousand feet away from Tan Tai Lian. Someone else has comprehended it? Could it be Chen Hao? This figure was Yi Wendao. After sensing the sudden ripple in the space, Yi Wendao immediately guessed that it was Chen Hao. This was because among the 30 disciples who had entered this time, only Chen Hao's talent, comprehension, and strength were comparable to his. Chen Hao had broken through the shackles of endless darkness and entered the true 7 Stars Grotto Heaven. Good. Very good. This is the best. This is where you belong. Yi Wendao's eyes shone with arrogance and viciousness as he mumbled. Even though he knew that since Chen Hao had entered, he must have also stepped into the Golden Elixir realm, but he was not afraid at all. There was only a monstrous killing intent. This was because he believed that after advancing to the early stage of the Golden Elixir realm, mastering the 9 swords as one, and stepping into the 2nd level of the Massacre Sword principle, Chen Hao would definitely not be a match for him. Since Chen Hao had entered, how could he let him go? Even if he had to sacrifice some of his cultivation time, it would be worth it. This was because, as someone who cultivated the massacre sword principle, he would not allow any failure. If he did not kill Chen Hao, there would be a heart demon in his massacre heart, which would become the main factor that restricted his cultivation. If he did not kill Chen Hao now, even if he had the ability to kill Chen Hao after leaving the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven, the sect would not allow it. At most, he would lose the battle. However, that outcome was obviously not as satisfying as killing Chen Hao. As soon as Yi Wendao finished his words, he turned into a ray of light and flew in the direction of the ripple. This mystical space of the 7 Stars Peril was filled with even more heaven and earth energy. The only difference was that it had become 7 resplendent stars. Moreover, the resplendent starlight had merged into one, bringing with it a profound aura that could pierce through the darkness and directly pour onto one's body. At all times, one could sense the profound aura of the heavenly Tao laws. The entire space seemed to be under the starry sky. It was no longer an endless darkness where one could not even see one's own fingers. It was not something the 1st to 3rd levels could compare to. Tan Tai Lien, who was staring at the 7 stars excitedly, suddenly felt a sharp and terrifying killing intent spread over. She quickly turned her head and saw a ray of light approaching her from afar. Under the faint starlight, Tan Tai Lien could not see the other party's appearance. However, this aura instantly made Tan Tai Lien frown slightly. What a strong killing intent. It should be Yi Wendao. Tan Tai Lien instantly determined the other party's identity from his aura. Among the 30 disciples, only Yi Wendao's killing intent was so strong. A bad premonition appeared in Tan Tai Lien's heart. It was obvious that Yi Wendao had sensed the ripple when she entered the space. What was he doing here instead of cultivating in such an excellent place for cultivation? Tan Tai Lien frowned as she looked at the rapidly approaching figure. She silently circulated the energy around her to the maximum. It's actually her? Yi Wendao, who had wanted to attack directly, suddenly stopped when he was 100 feet away from Tan Tai Lien. He stared at Tan Tai Lien with a cold expression and thought to himself in surprise. The strong killing intent on his body was slightly restrained before it erupted again without restraint. His eyes were filled with viciousness and cruelty as he looked at Tan Tai Lien. However, he did not immediately attack. Before Tan Tai Lien entered the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven, she was only a low-grade intense saint. I didn't expect her to advance to the Golden Core realm. She's Chen Hao's Tao companion, and she's a intent one. Such a Tao companion is a treasure in the cultivation world. Yi Wendao's mind spun rapidly. His expression became increasingly cold and vicious. Before entering the 7 Stars Paradise, although he was a little envious of Chen Hao for having a Tao companion like Tan Tai Lien, he did not take it to heart. After all, there was a huge gap between Tan Tai Lien and Chen Hao's combat strength. They still needed time to really get used to each other. But now, Tan Tai Lien's terrifying advancement made him feel a huge threat. The intense saint had entered the Golden Core realm. Once such a woman walked out of the 7 Stars Paradise and dual cultivated with Chen Hao would be like a fish in water and obtain incomparable benefits. The speed of their cultivation advancement would surpass that of ordinary disciples. Even he could not compare. Unless he could also find a Tao companion like Tan Tai Lien. But how could it be so simple? This woman must die. Otherwise, even if Chen Hao has not advanced to the Golden Core realm now, he will advance rapidly because of this woman after he leaves. She is a huge threat to me. Yi Wendao thought of something and stared at the vigilant Tan Tai Lien. He suddenly withdrew his killing intent and said, "Junior sister Tan Tai Lien, right? I did not expect your talent to be so high. I was just lucky. There are only 4 months left in the 7 Stars Paradise. Senior brother Yi, you should focus on cultivation." Tan Tai Lien stared at Yi Wendao and said coldly. Even though she looked calm on the surface, the strong sense of danger made Tan Tai Lien not dare to relax. She knew how strong Yi Wendao was. Even though she had already advanced to the Golden Core realm and narrowed the gap between her and Yi Wendao, His terrifying aura was still not something she could resist. But Tan Tai Lien was nervous, but she was not afraid. At least, in her opinion, even though Yi Wendao was unwilling to come to a draw with Chen Hao and was their strongest competitor, they were still from the same sect. She believed that Yi Wendao was not cold-blooded enough to kill her. Is that so? Indeed, you should focus on cultivation. Then let's not waste time talking nonsense. I'll give you two choices. First, second, be my Dao companion. Do it now. Shameless. Tan Tai Lien was instantly enraged. Bang! A majestic and terrifying flame was emitted from her body as she pointed her sword at Yi Wendao. How do I choose to die? Think carefully. Don't think that you are qualified to fight me just because you have advanced to the Golden Core realm. Killing you is as easy as killing a chicken. Being my Dao companion is the wisest choice. Of course, you are already Chen Hao's woman. To put it bluntly, you are a used shoe. Therefore, I can treat you well, but only in the dark. After we go out, you can only be my woman in private. My talent is better than Chen Hao's. Moreover, it won't be long before he dies under my sword. I'm speaking the truth. A wise man submits to circumstances. Make your choice. Nirvana burning heaven. Tan Tai Lien's furious shout was the reply to Yi Wendao. She was too naive. She did not expect Yi Wendao to be so shameless. Her illusion of being a fellow disciple after entering the sect was instantly shattered. In the face of benefits and competition, what was the point of talking about friendship? She knew that she was no match for Yi Wendao, but she still attacked. She knew that she would die, but she did not choose to surrender. She was already Chen Hao's woman. Even though she was still perfect, their experience was no different from the fusion of yin and yang to a woman. Moreover, she knew that her body and heart were the same. She would rather die than surrender. Child's play. Looks like your confidence is inflated? Then I'll show you what I'm made of. First update. Chapter 231. Yi Wendao seemed to have casually swung his sword, but in fact, he was also slightly shocked. Tan Tai Lien, who had just reached the Golden Core stage, attacked furiously. This was definitely the strongest attack that Yi Wendao had ever encountered. Even he did not dare to let his guard down. Although he made it sound easy, he had directly used the second level of the Massacre Sword principle to fuse the first three swords into a single sword. Don't kill me, don't kill me. With me by your side, I can definitely help you dominate the world of cultivation. Itoda, who was being suppressed by the 5 divine beasts in Chen Hao's mind, begged for mercy in fear. At this moment, Itoda's nascent soul was not being refined by Chen Hao. Instead, under the suppression of the mysterious runes, it was absorbing the endless energy of heaven and earth, making it bigger and stronger. Moreover, the new energy was like a chain that separated the original energy of the nascent soul, imprisoning it piece by piece. Even if Itoda's soul was destroyed, the energy it contained would not be able to cause any trouble. Because of this, Chen Hao decided to kill this fly in his mind. You are just a prisoner, a remnant of your soul. Can you help me dominate the world of cultivation? Chen Hao said disdainfully. Yes, absolutely. I've been roaming the eastern continent for hundreds of years. I'm experienced and knowledgeable. I know a lot of secrets that your sect disciples don't know. I also have the great art of possession and the Ecstasy Heart Sutra in my head. The art of possession can make you immortal and stay young forever. The art of ecstasy is even more powerful. It can be used for dual cultivation. You can use yin to supplement yang. It can increase your enjoyment. Other than these two, I also have the art of concealment. With your amazing talent, you can definitely cultivate it to the highest level and hide your cultivation level at will. Oh? Is it really as good as you say? It's absolutely true. You have just entered the world of cultivation and might not know. Itoda, am only at the peak of the late nascent soul stage. However, I can do whatever I want in the eastern continent. Not only the core disciples like Yi Fei Xue, but also countless elders and rogue cultivators who are stronger than them want to get the reward for killing me. However, no one can do it. It's because I have these 3 ultimate techniques. If not for my poor talent and my inability to find a strong physical body, I would have stepped into the embodiment realm or even the essence soul realm a long time ago. The incarnation realm, also known as the leaving aperture realm, was an existence one level higher than the nascent soul realm. When the nascent soul left the body, it would form an avatar. At the highest level, the nascent soul could be divided into 9 avatars. It was equivalent to having 9 extra lives. As for the essence soul realm, it was an existence one level higher than the embodiment realm. When the nascent soul and the soul completely fused, it would become the primordial spirit. Even if an essence soul realm expert's physical body was destroyed, as long as their essence soul was not destroyed, they could possess another body or be reborn. Possession was similar to Itoda's possession technique. Rebirth, on the other hand, was to directly enter the body of the unborn baby in the mother's womb. After overcoming the mystery of being in the womb, one would awaken their memories. This was the legendary reincarnation of an immortal. This was also the choice made by many essence soul realm experts when their lifespans were nearing their end. You're right. Unfortunately, this is an ultimate technique of the Devil Tao, and it's completely useless to me. So, it's better for you to die. Wait for me to finish. You probably don't know that the so-called righteous path and Devil Tao are only different in terms of refining and absorbing energy. There is no difference in terms of cultivation techniques. You absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and the righteous energy of heaven and earth, while we of the Devil Tao absorb the evil energy of heaven and earth and the demonic energy of heaven and earth. Other than this difference, there is no difference at all. These 3 ultimate techniques of mine were obtained from a genius disciple of a sect by chance. Is that so? Chen Hao was slightly taken aback. In the summary of the Eastern continent, there was no mention of Devil Tao cultivation techniques, but the words revealed the evilness of the Devil Tao. If you don't believe me, you can ask the experts of the Zhaixing sect before making a decision. If that's the case, then teach it to me now. Chen Hao, who was immersed in his mind, said without hesitation. You agree not to kill me? That depends on whether you're as valuable as you say. Don't worry, I guarantee that you'll be satisfied. I'll teach it to you now. At this moment, 2 strange cries, which were filled with rage and sorrow, suddenly pierced through Chen Hao's body, as if they were ringing from the depths of his soul. The phoenix is in danger? Chen Hao was shocked. He had no time to pay attention to Idota. His mind suddenly escaped from his mind and returned to his body. 4 hours ago, he had advanced to the golden core stage and had broken through the endless darkness with his powerful strength. He had arrived at the real 7-star cave and started to destroy Idota. He had never thought that Tantai Lien would be able to come in, and he had never thought that Tantai Lien would be in danger in this magical place for cultivation. If not for the fact that the inheritance of the phoenix did not belong to Tantai Lien, he, who was immersed in his mind, would not have heard the cries of the phoenix. Could it be Yi Wendao? Swoosh! Chen Hao turned into a stream of light and sensed the aura of the phoenix. Anger rose in his heart. Tantai Lien being able to enter the 7-star cave was completely out of Chen Hao's expectations. Yi Wendao was the only one who could be in danger. Thinking of Yi Wendao's terrifying battle strength and talent, Chen Hao was sure that it was Yi Wendao, even though he had not sensed any aura. Otherwise, even an expert like Li Long would not be able to threaten Tantai Lien now. Chen Hao knew that since Tantai Lien could enter this place, she must have reached the golden core stage. Otherwise, no matter how strong the intent realm was, she would not be able to break through the endless darkness. Even when Chen Hao was at the peak of the dual god realm, he could not break through, let alone Tantai Lien. Tantai Lien, I'll give you one last chance. With your talent, if you can become my Tao companion, not only me, but you will also be able to improve tremendously. I, Yi Wendao, agree to let you be my Tao companion. How about it? Yi Wendao had used the second realm of the massacre sword principle to combine 6 swords into one, but he still could not suppress Tantai Lien. He was truly shocked. This was especially so for Tantai Lien's quintessential essence, which could give birth to crystals with just a thought. the strength of the phoenix's inheritance, and her beautiful face, which was becoming more and more pleasing to the eye. Yi Wendao was truly tempted. The quintessential essence produced by an intent realm cultivator would bring him endless benefits if he were to dual cultivate with her. Although in his heart, as well as everyone else's, Tantai Lien was already Chenhao's woman, for the sake of cultivation, he gave in and said that they would be Dao companions. Although he was destined to be despised and mocked by some people, as long as he could increase his strength rapidly, it was fine. Whoever said that would be killed. When he was strong enough and Tantai Lien was of no use to him, he could just abandon or kill her. Dream on. Tantai Lien, who was covered in flames and covered in wounds, said sternly with a furious expression. Blood was still flowing out of her mouth. However, the Nirvana flame's aura was getting weaker and weaker, and her delicate body was trembling. Not only was she severely injured, but even the phoenix was severely injured and extremely weak. It was no longer able to help Tantai Lien launch any attacks. This was the true massacre sword Dao, combining 6 swords into one. Tantai Lien knew that she was probably going to die here today, but she had no regrets. The only thing in her mind was Chenhao, who was sometimes cold and sometimes warm to her, but could also avoid her. Although Yi Wendao's words were extravagant, and although dual cultivating with Yi Wendao could indeed allow her to survive and develop very well, but she was not swayed at all. She was no longer the young girl who had bad thoughts for the sake of becoming stronger. She had already grown up and understood what feelings were. Especially at this moment, she understood very clearly. Although she did not know what Chenhao was thinking, she had already confirmed her heart. Do you really want to die? What's there to be afraid of death? You shameless person, Chenhao will not let you off. Ha! Do you think I will let him off? Since you are so dead set on him, then you can die. Of course, I won't let you die so easily. Ha! I'll let you die in comfort. I really want to know what expression Chenhao will have when he finds out that his woman died under my legs. Although we can't dual cultivate, it's not bad to have a taste of your broken shoes. Don't worry, he will follow you very soon. You can meet again on the road to the netherworld. Tantai Lien's face instantly turned pale when she heard Yi Wendao's words, and then a strand of determination flashed through her eyes. The aura around her suddenly rose violently, and she stared at Yi Wendao with a cold and resolute expression as she said, "Don't even think of getting your way. I only have one Dao companion in the past, in the present, and in the future. I only belong to him. My body and heart only belong to him, Chenhao." Boo! Chenhao! Tantai Lien looked up at the sky and used all her strength to shout out Chenhao's name. Incomparably firm, incomparably persistent, with longing, with reluctance, with decisiveness. In the instant she shouted out these 2 words, she felt an unprecedented clarity and tranquility in her body and mind. She no longer had any fear or regret. Do you want to self-destruct? It's too late. Condense. Yi Wendao's murderous eyes flickered with an evil aura as he spoke with disdain and strategizing. As he spoke, countless pure and domineering true essence suddenly seemed to have been lying in ambush around Tantai Lien, and it sealed her meridians at lightning speed. At the same time, an even more terrifying energy suddenly shook the Baihui acupoint on the top of Tantai Lien's head. Immediately, Tantai Lien felt her vision turn black, and her consciousness started to dissipate. She slowly closed her eyes, and they flickered with incomparable despair and humiliation. No matter what, she never thought that even self-destruction would become an extravagant hope at this moment. She was really scared. Death was not scary. But being blasphemed to death by this shameless person was something she could not accept. But now, she knew that it was all over. Amidst the boundless fear and despair, her consciousness slowly disappeared. Puff! A sword light suddenly appeared the moment Tantai Lien closed her eyes. Second update. Sorry, the update was late. A classmate came to my house to play, and he came without saying anything. What a pain in the ass. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 232. There was no dangerous aura, nor was there any explosion of energy. There was only the soft, almost inaudible sound of a sharp weapon cutting into a body. Yi Wendao felt the sword from the top of his head to the bottom of his legs suddenly become slightly cold. He saw a cold light flash past his forehead. He suspected that it was an illusion and couldn't help but lower his head to take a look. The tip of a sword was slowly being pulled out from between his legs. It was a sword. At this moment, Yi Wendao's eyes widened in shock. All the hair on his body stood on end. He suddenly activated his energy and turned his head to look. From the top of his head to between his legs, blood suddenly spurted out like arrows, shooting out like they were free. Even now, Yi Wendao did not feel any pain. Everything seemed unreal. However, the energy in his body was no longer under his control. He saw a face with cold eyes and an otherworldly handsome face. At this moment, the sword in the figure's hand trembled once more. Instantly, dense streams of coldness grew in his body. Yi Wenwen felt like his body was like air, unable to obstruct the sword at all. The astonished Yi Wendao wanted to say something, but no words came out. He suddenly felt that his head had lost its support. Out of the corner of his eyes, he saw that his body was like a pile of mud, turning into small pieces 1 centimeter at a time. His head was split into 2, and his eyes were separated. He fell into the minced meat. There was no pain. Everything happened too quickly, so quickly that he didn't even have time to feel his own pain. It was as if he had jumped out of his body. He looked down at his physical body in extreme horror, as well as the figure in front of him who had dismembered him. Endless fear and unwillingness roared in his heart. He knew that he was finished. At this moment, all that remained was his soul. After stepping into the golden core realm, a powerful soul that could exist for a period of time before dissipating. His short and glorious life had come to an end. He had to escape into the cycle of reincarnation and start anew. Monstrous hatred spread out at this moment, like a gust of ghastly and bone-piercing cold wind. Refine. At this moment, Chen Hao's incomparably cold voice, which seemed to have come from hell, suddenly rang out. Soon after, a strange cry that resounded throughout the world rose together with endless flames. The divine beast vermilion bird formed the vermilion bird seal. Yi Wendao's soul was immediately sucked in by a strong, fearless devouring force. The nirvana heavenly flame burned fiercely. As Yi Wendao's soul let out a miserable shriek, it was faintly discernible within the vermilion bird seal. After a moment, there were no more fluctuations. The nirvana heavenly flame also slowly extinguished and returned to Chen Hao's mind. His divine soul had been destroyed. On the star-picking peak, seeing that it was time for the 7 stars grotto heaven to close, everyone's eyes were fixed on the mysterious rune in the middle. Everyone knew that it was time for Yi Wendao, Chen Hao, and Tan Tai Lien to come out. Even though the 3 of them were still cultivating, when the 3 months were up, they would be forcibly ejected. This kind of situation had happened many times in the past. However, this, Yuan Tairen, the sect master of the star-picking sect, the many elders, and the 27 disciples who were still waiting, were extremely shocked. Chen Hao and the other 2 did not come out, but the light of the mysterious runes began to weaken, and then they disappeared before everyone's eyes. What happened? Voices rang out as everyone looked at Yuan Tairen. However, Yuan Tairen's expression was as shocked and confused as everyone else. After a short moment of silence, Yuan Tairen suddenly thought of something. His eyes shone with excitement as he said, Could it be that the 3 of them broke through to the 4th level? It must be so, it must be so. Exclamations of surprise came from everyone's mouths. It's impossible to die in the 7 stars grotto heaven. The 1,000-year-old inheritance, has the 4th level finally been opened? Yuan Tairen could no longer remain calm. His expression was filled with intense excitement and joy as he spoke. After he finished speaking, he laughed to the sky to vent the excitement in his heart. Sect Master, is this true? Absolutely. Yi Wendao, Chen Hao, and Tan Tai Lien. Among the 3 of them, even Tan Tai Lien is a rare genius disciple of our star-picking sect, let alone Yi Wendao and Chen Hao. Our star-picking sect's fortune has finally arrived. Elders, follow me to ask the Grand Elder for help. As long as we can lock onto the aura of the 4th level of the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven, our disciples will be able to cultivate on the 4th level. If I haven't guessed wrong, the 4th level is a treasured cultivation ground for core formation experts. Let's go. Yes. One by one, the figures disappeared on the spot and headed towards the highest palace on the star-picking peak, leaving behind a dumbfounded Li Long and the other disciples. The 3 of them actually made it to the 4th floor. Is the star-picking sect really going to rise? That's great. Just wait until our star-picking sect rises in rank. I'd like to see how those bastards from my family will laugh at me. As long as I become one of the top 10 inner sect disciples, I will be able to obtain the qualifications to enter the 4th level. I will definitely enter. Li Long's eyes shone brightly as he clenched his fists and said in his heart. Although he was very envious of Chen Hao and the other 2, he was not jealous. He believed that his talent was not inferior to anyone else's. It was just that his great opportunity and great fortune had not arrived yet. Li Long wanted to leave immediately and go out to train. However, when he thought that the legendary Grand Elder might be coming, he suppressed the urge to immediately cultivate crazily and stayed. He wanted to see the Grand Elder's unparalleled superpower. Phew! Chen Hao took a deep breath and calmed the anger in his heart. He slowly walked towards the unconscious Tan Tai Lian. Even Chen Hao felt a bit of lingering fear, because he had come too late. Tan Tai Lian was able to survive because of luck. She was not destined to die. If not for Yi Wendao's lust and Yi Wendao's powerful ability that prevented Tan Tai Lian from self-destructing in time, even Chen Hao would not have been able to save her. At most, he would have killed Yi Wendao. When the phoenix's wail rang out, Chen Hao was a few hundred miles away from the 2 of them. In this mysterious space, because the energy was too thick and viscous, flying speed was greatly restricted. He heard Tan Tai Lian's voice and heard her shouting his name. He saw how determined Tan Tai Lian was about to self-destruct. However, he could not stop her in time. At that time, he was still 1,000 meters away from the 2 of them. Fortunately, Yi Wendao stopped her. He gently picked up the heavily injured Tan Tai Lian. Pure and majestic energy immediately surged out from his dantian and poured into Tan Tai Lian's body. At the same time, a strand of mental energy fused into Tan Tai Lian's mind in an attempt to wake her up. What shocked Chen Hao was that after his spiritual power entered Tan Tai Lian's mind, he could not capture any of her thoughts. Her consciousness seemed to have completely dissipated and could no longer cause any ripples. It was as if a stone had sunk into the sea. What's going on? Chen Hao's expression changed drastically. It felt as if his spiritual power had entered a dead object without any life or intelligence. What shocked him even more was that even the aura of the phoenix had completely disappeared. Chen Hao did not believe it and strengthened his spiritual power again. However, there was still no reaction. I clearly stopped the self-destruction. How can there be no consciousness? How is this possible? Could it be that her physical injuries are too severe and she's already? Chen Hao's expression was extremely ugly. A bad premonition grew in his heart. Help her heal the injuries on her physical body first. At this moment, the voice of the treasure-hunting sword's spirit rang out in Chen Hao's mind. What's going on? Chen Hao hurriedly asked in his mind. Her heart is dead. Her heart is dead. Chen Hao trembled all over. You don't have to be too nervous. Although her physical body is severely injured, her soul has not dissipated. However, because of her extreme despair, the will to die was born, causing her soul to enter a state of suspended animation. Because she is unwilling to accept the humiliation of being blasphemed, she would rather she never wake up. This is the so-called death of her heart. Although it's a little troublesome, it's not hopeless. Treat her body first. I'll tell you how to save her later. The treasure-hunting sword spirit said. All right. Chen Hao replied. He immediately circulated his true essence and began to treat Tan Tai Lian's injuries. Her meridians, dantian, and internal organs were rapidly repaired under the circulation of Chen Hao's pure and majestic energy. However, it was unable to match Chen Hao's freakish recovery speed. After 6 hours, Chen Hao was drenched in sweat. His face was slightly pale, and he had almost exhausted all of his true essence. Finally, he completed the repair. The unconscious Tantai Lian seemed to have fallen into a deep sleep. There was a trace of redness on her face. What should I do now? Chen Hao immediately asked in his mind after confirming that Tantai Lian's body was fine. There are 2 methods. One is to eject your soul into her mind, find the soul residence, and awaken her. You can't do this method for now. You can only wait until you advance to the incarnation realm before you have the ability to eject your soul. At that time, her soul will have dissipated. Or you can cultivate the possession technique of the fellow in your mind. It's best if you can master it in a day. If you can't master it in 10 days, it's completely hopeless. Because every day one of her souls will dissipate. If you can master it in 10 days, the prerequisite is that you must be able to awaken her last remaining soul or one of her souls. Give her the will to live and gather her dissipated soul. If you can revive her, after 10 days, her 3 souls and 7 spirits will completely dissipate. Although they will still be in her mind and have not truly disappeared, you will not be able to awaken them. Even if she can gather them one day, she will lose all of her memories. More accurately, she will become another person, like a newborn baby. Also, the reason why it's best to master it in 1 day. Because she will only be complete if she is awakened in 1 day. The later she is awakened, the more memories she will lose. Also, the damage to her soul cannot be healed. Then why are you still talking about it? The second method, Chen Hao said sternly. The second method is very simple. Yin and Yang blend. Chapter 233. Fusion of Yin and Yang? That's right. Only with the help of the fusion of Yin and Yang can she wake up. The fusion of Yin and Yang is the most mysterious communication between a man and a woman. When Yin and Yang meet, their energy will merge into one and form a big cycle in their bodies. The fusion of energy will lead to the sublimation of their souls and achieve the true fusion of their souls and bodies. At that time, you don't need to wake her up. Your minds will be connected and you will wake up naturally. You won't be affected at all. On the contrary, whether it's you or her, both of you will be greatly improved in the fusion of Yin and Yang. After hearing what the treasure-hunting sword spirit said, Chen Hao fell silent and frowned. After half a minute, he asked, "Is there no other way?" There are only 2 ways. I'm afraid only the second way can be done. You've already stepped into the golden core realm. Actually, you don't have to worry so much, said the treasure-hunting sword spirit. Chen Hao didn't say anything else. His mind went directly to Itota's soul. How long will it take to master the possession technique? With my talent, it's the fastest speed. 1 day. No, 16 hours. Can I use it? I have to use it immediately. Cough. That won't do. Why not? You're only in the early stage of the golden core realm. Even if you can understand the possession technique immediately, you have to set up the broken yang and pure yin sacrificial altar before you can use it. Otherwise, your soul will dissipate when it leaves your body, not to mention the possession technique. If I can understand it immediately, how long will it take to use it? If I have all the materials, it will take at least 3 days to set up the broken yang and pure yin sacrificial altar. Also, I have to choose a full moon night. But when I set up the immortal trapping array, all the materials were destroyed by you, damn it. Chen Hao cursed and his mind jumped out of his mind. A full moon night? There's no full moon here. In 4 months, it'll be too late. Looking at Tantai Lian's motionless figure, Chen Hao really had a headache. Facing such a beautiful woman, it was impossible to say that he didn't have any desire. However, in the past, although Chen Hao had done this countless times with the best women on earth, it was only an exchange of interests and a pure venting of primitive desires. There was no such thing as soul fusion, but he was also unbridled and fearless because he didn't need to take any responsibility. All he needed to do was to give the other party enough benefits. That was emotionless. However, things were different now. Once he did it, how would he face it? Where should he go from here? The knot in his heart could not be untied. Time ticked by. Every minute and every second was torture for Chen Hao. He kept pacing, shaking his head, and looking at Tantalian. He fell into intense torment and inner struggle. You still have a way, don't you? In Chen Hao's mind, the treasure-hunting sword spirit sensed the mysterious and terrifying existence and asked, "So what if I do? So what if he didn't?" This is his inner demon. How he chooses is up to him. This time, I can't interfere. Didn't you stop him from mixing yin and yang in the past? Why aren't you stopping me now? The treasure-hunting sword spirit asked unhappily. The past is the past, and the present is the present. This is tempering. What do you know? Human emotions are the most mysterious thing in the world. The power it can unleash is also beyond your imagination. When the time comes, it's up to him to choose. I can only interfere when I'm absolutely sure he's right. When I'm not sure, I can only let him choose. Otherwise, he'll still become my original master. Everyone has their own Tao. Only by walking your own Tao can you truly attain Tao. The mysterious existence's tone was uncertain for the first time. He had accompanied countless masters, but none of them had reached the end. Why was it that under his complete control, they were clearly getting closer and closer to the final goal, but they all failed in the end? Once, twice, thrice, and 4 times. How many times had the same result in a row? He had no choice but to find the problem with himself. It was also because of this that he said what he said just now. Perhaps the root cause of the mistake was him. Everyone had their own Tao, but he had paved the way for everyone to walk on. Therefore, when he met Chen Hao this time, he didn't do that again. He only interfered when he was completely sure that he was right. As for the rest, he would let nature take its course. He didn't pave the way. Only when he saw the path Chen Hao was going to take would he confirm the direction of his assistance. Fusion of yin and yang. How do I do it? Finally, when there were only 4 hours left and one of Tantalian's souls was about to disperse, a gleam flashed through the eyes of Chen Hao, who was immersed in struggle and suffering. He seemed to have made up his mind as he spoke in his mind. Do you still need to ask? Upon hearing Chen Hao's words, the treasure-hunting sword spirit knew that Chen Hao had already made his decision. However, the question he asked gave the treasure-hunting sword spirit a headache. Cough cough. In the past, I didn't have any experience. I didn't have any emotions. Now, I don't have any experience at all. Will it be different? This kind of thing? I know, but I'm only an artifact spirit. I can't really understand human emotions. You should just do as you wish. I can't help you. Fuck, who needs your help? Chen Hao gloomily cut off the connection with the treasure-hunting sword spirit. At the same time, he urged his mind to form a mental barrier in his mind. Although these guys weren't humans and didn't understand the true joy of these things between men and women. However, Chen Hao was still unwilling to let this kind of thing be watched by countless pairs of eyes. Taking a deep breath, Chen Hao looked at Tantalian, who seemed to be sleeping soundly. You can understand, right? Chen Hao muttered to himself. Helian Wuzi's figure appeared in his mind. There was also a figure that was once real but had now become illusory again. Xia Yuyu. It wasn't that there was a problem with Xia Yuyu. In reality, the only one who could truly shake his heart when he sealed himself was Xia Yuyu. Perhaps it was because of the 9 revolutions heaven-yang earthine formula, or perhaps it was because of Xia Yuyu's eyes. In short, it was shaking, and Helian Wuzi and Tantalian, who really existed beside him, were slowly awakened. Chen Hao didn't think about which was more important. Even if he thought about it, he wouldn't have an answer. Otherwise, he wouldn't have thought of taking things one step at a time. Hiss hiss hiss. On the Zhaixing Peak, the leader of the Zhaixing sect, Yuan Tairan, and 6 elders with powerful auras faced the place where the runes of the 7 stars grotto heaven had appeared. They continuously sent out mysterious hand seals that emitted majestic energy fluctuations. They forcibly forced out a trace of the runes that had disappeared. However, it was only a faint trace. No mysterious aura or teleportation hole appeared. In the middle of the 7 people, a drop of blood essence floated. This drop of blood essence was Yi Wendao's. And they were currently capturing Yi Wendao's aura. Any disciple of a sect would leave behind their birth date and a bottle of blood essence after they entered the sect. At the crucial moment, they could rely on the birth date and blood essence aura to lock onto the disciple's aura in the mysterious long river of life. This was also a remarkable ability that would definitely be used when discovering the entrance to a monument or a mysterious space. The more powerful the monument or space, the higher the requirement for the cultivation of the caster. For a powerful cultivation holy land like the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven, even the leader of the Zhai Xing sect couldn't complete it alone. The other 6 elders were the Grand Elders who were in seclusion in their own grotto heavens. Any one of them had a stronger cultivation than Yuan Tairan. The inner sect elders, outer sect elders, Li Long, and the other 27 disciples all had intense anticipation on their faces as they stared at the 7 people who were casting the spell. Time ticked by. After a full hour, Yuan Tairan and the 6 Grand Elders gradually frowned. Clearly, they had encountered something that was beyond their expectations. How could this be? After a few more minutes, Yuan Tairan and the 7 Grand Elders finally gave up. They were all puzzled. Yuan Tairan looked at the 6 Grand Elders and asked, "Is there a mistake in this disciple's birth date and blood essence? Which peak does he belong to?" "Grand Elder, Yi Wendao belongs to my peak. I personally calculated his birth characters and extracted his blood essence with my own hands, so there's no way I'm wrong." "Could it be that you can't sense it?" Meng Shigang said respectfully. "That's strange. The 7 of us are working together, but we can't sense his aura. That's not right. He must have entered the 4th floor if he hasn't come out yet. As long as he's in the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven, he shouldn't be able to escape our senses." "It's very strange indeed," another Grand Elder said. "Did this Yi Wendao encounter some kind of bloodline inheritance? If his birth date and birth date are correct, it could only be a problem with his blood essence. Unless he obtained some kind of bloodline inheritance that completely changed his fortune, causing his aura and blood essence to lose its effect. Well, Yi Wendao has acquired the legacy from the Sword Lake ruins and is practicing the Tao of Slaughter. Other than that, I'm not too sure. I only know that his luck, talent, battle prowess, and temperament make him a super genius of the star-picking sect that only appears once every 100 years. Oh, the inheritance of the Sword Lake ruins? According to the ancient records, the Sword Lake Palace is extremely powerful. Its Tao of Slaughter is also famous in the cultivation world. This kid must be extraordinary to be able to obtain such an inheritance. He's worth nurturing. Not bad indeed. It seems like this kid must have some kind of bloodline inheritance. His future is limitless." The 2 Supreme Elders exclaimed in surprise. Meng Langong's face was filled with uncontrollable joy and excitement upon hearing this. "All right, let's move on to the next one. We should focus on finding the location of the 4th floor as soon as possible," an old man with a higher status among the 6 Grand Elders said. Wu Zichuan hurriedly took out Chen Hao's and Tan Tai Lian's blood essence and birth characters and said, "These are Chen Hao's and Tan Tai Lian's. Both of them are new disciples, and only Chen Hao has gone out to train once. I think there should be no problem with their blood essence, and Tan Tai Lian's is even more so. Use Tan Tai Lian's. Let's not waste any more energy. This kid Chen Hao is not simple," Yuan Tairan said. When he mentioned Chen Hao, his face flickered with pride. Although it was not obvious, the crowd could feel that Chen Hao's position in his heart was obviously higher than Yi Wendao's. That was indeed the case. Even he still hadn't figured out Chen Hao's strange sword strike until now. Inhale, 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 inhale. Chen Hao sat cross-legged in front of Tan Tai Lian. He used his energy to control Tan Tai Lian to sit in front of him. At this moment, Chen Hao, who had always been straightforward and decisive in killing, felt as if his heart was about to jump out of his throat, and he felt as if he couldn't catch his breath. He was actually nervous. He was so nervous that he could not control his emotions. He took deep breaths again and again, but the more it was like this, the more nervous Chen Hao was. Chapter 234. Those who achieve great things don't care about trifles. I'm a man. What's there to be nervous about? It's not like I haven't done it before. It's such a simple thing. Chen Hao rubbed his hands together and muttered to himself. Although he said it casually, his hands reached for Tan Tai Lian's shoulders, retracted, and rubbed again. He couldn't take the first step. Don't care about trifles, don't care about trifles. This seems to be a little big. I've done it before, but that was me in the past. It was an exchange of interests without emotions. The current me, this. Chen Hao stood up and paced back and forth. Seeing that time was running out, he became more and more anxious. Do it. What am I afraid of? Isn't it just responsibility? Isn't it just that I don't know how to face it? Since I can't be heartless, I have to be responsible. A real man is afraid of everything. What's the point of that? It's unavoidable. I can only face it head-on. There's not much time left. When he thought up to this point, even though Chen Hao's face was flushed red like a little boy who had stolen the forbidden fruit for the first time, his heartbeat and breathing were rapid, and his outstretched hands were trembling because he was too excited and nervous, but he still reached for Tan Tai Lian's shoulders unwaveringly. Finally, through the thin Taoist robe, he felt the smoothness of Tan Tai Lian's Taoist robe. His trembling hands were sweating profusely when he undid a button. He wanted to shrink back countless times, but he resisted in the end. There wasn't much time left. In the last 4 hours, if Tan Tai Lian lost her soul, that kind of injury would really be irreparable. The second, the third, perhaps because he had taken the first step, although Chen Hao was getting more and more excited, his movements became more and more nimble. Soon, he took off Tan Tai Lian's Taoist robe. Only her chest and underwear were left. The faint body fragrance stimulated Chen Hao's nose. Her fragrant shoulders, lower abdomen, and jade legs were completely exposed. Her skin was as white as snow. Although Chen Hao had already seen her true appearance, it seemed even more difficult to resist the charm of hugging a pipa and covering half of her face. The primitive desire and impulse completely exploded at this moment. In the endless darkness, there was no consciousness, no thoughts. Everything was silent. Tan Tai Lian's soul floated in the most mysterious soul palace in her mind. His soul power was dissipating bit by bit. The heavily damaged phoenix inheritance had also become 2 phoenix imprints that floated in Tan Tai Lian's mind, which was as still as a dead sea and devoid of ripples. Phew! After an unknown period of time, Tan Tai Lian's mind was suddenly blown by gusts of wind, creating layers of ripples. It was also at this moment that Chen Hao's soul began to violently tremble. This feeling had completely surpassed his imagination. Even though Tan Tai Lian was unconscious, even though there was no response, however, Tan Tai Lian was different from Chen Hao in the past. She was a woman who only wanted to vent her desires and had no emotional foundation. When Chen Hao kissed those soft lips that didn't react at all, and at the same time, slowly and truly came into contact with Tan Tai Lian's flawless, soft, and seemingly boneless body, a wonderful and unprecedented feeling began to grow in Chen Hao's heart. His large hands held those soft and holy twin peaks and slid across the graceful and smooth body. There was the pride, and sense of accomplishment of a man's possessiveness. There was also the responsibility of a man. At the same time, there was an unprecedented pleasure in his body and mind. This feeling was indescribable. Chen Hao only knew that he had done it. He had truly done it. He wasn't as confused, perturbed, or at a loss as he had imagined. Although he really wanted to savor the taste of the forbidden fruit for the first time in his life, Chen Hao knew that now wasn't the time. Firstly, Tan Tai Lian was completely unconscious. Secondly, there was less than 2 hours left. He had to awaken Tan Tai Lian's soul first. Therefore, he could only suppress the desire in his heart. After forming the heaven and earth yin-yang bridge between the 2 key parts, he controlled the energy in Tan Tai Lian's body and began to form a big cycle in their bodies. The primitive desire and the gentle throbbing accompanied the cycle of the body's energy. It went from rough to smooth. Chen Hao was immersed in the wonderful feeling and state of mind. He gradually transcended himself. His mind and soul naturally came into contact with Tantai Lian's mind and clearly locked onto the most profound and mysterious soul palace. Two weak cries sounded amidst the layers of ripples. The heavily injured Feng and Huang finally woke up. Feeling the aura of yin and yang, Feng directly merged into the depths of Chen Hao's soul. Then, Huang, under Feng's guidance, locked onto Tantai Lian's soul palace and merged into Tantai Lian's unconscious soul. The mysterious power of the phoenix's inheritance of yin and yang began to release a mysterious fluctuation. Boom! The aura of the nirvana flame began to condense on the two naked bodies. The faint flame with a hint of blue was filled with a mysterious and primitive aura. At this moment, Tantai Lian's unconscious soul finally stopped dissipating. However, it still floated in the soul palace and showed no signs of waking up. Time passed second by second. The feeling of spring became stronger and stronger. Although Chen Hao put all his attention on the fusion of the two's energy and the big cycle, the pleasure of the origin stone still became stronger and stronger. However, the appearance of the phoenix made Chen Hao understand that at this moment, he had to restrain that impulse. Only through the primitive throbbing and the calling of the soul, as well as the power of the phoenix and Huang's inheritance, could he complete the true fusion when Tantai Lian's soul woke up. Doing this would not only awaken Tantai Lian, but also allow the two to complete the true phoenix's inheritance. The fusion of yang and pure yin bloomed. The true balance of yin and yang. Boundless spring. How could this be? While Chen Hao was hesitating and struggling to make a choice, on Star-Picking Peak, Yuan Tairan and the 6 Grand Elders were trying to capture Tantai Lian's aura again. Their faces were pale, and their energy was almost exhausted. They failed again. They thought that they would succeed this time. However, they still could not lock onto Tantai Lian's aura. Tantai Lian's bloodline did not change after she obtained the phoenix's inheritance. Even if there was a change, the essence blood we obtained was after she obtained the phoenix's inheritance. She has been in the star-picking sect all this time without any encounters. This shouldn't be. Is it because our cultivation is not enough? We can't really penetrate the space where the 7-star grotto heaven is? Yuan Tairan said with a frown after swallowing a true essence pill and regaining some color on his face. Impossible. Although the 7-star grotto heaven is powerful, it is inextricably linked to our star-picking sect. Since they obtained the opportunity to enter the 4th level, they should have been captured by us. Moreover, even without this connection, what level can the 7-star grotto heaven be? Grade 8 or Grade 9 ruins? That's obviously not possible. With the 7 of us working together, even if 3 of them are in Grade 9 ruins, we can still lock onto them. A Grand Elder said. What do we do now? Yi Wendao might have a problem with his bloodline. However, Tantai Lian definitely has no problem, but we still can't lock onto her. Could it be that the 7-star grotto heaven is not what we think it is? Yuan Tairan said. What do you mean? The 7th level is just our guess. Everyone entering a separate space is only the first 3 levels. Ever since the appearance of the 7-star grotto heaven and its 1,000-year legacy, none of us have gone beyond the 3rd level. Yuan Tairan frowned deeply. As the sect master, he naturally had wisdom that surpassed ordinary people. Vaguely, he already had a bad feeling. After a slight pause, he continued, if the 3 of them entered the same space, with Yi Wendao's temperament of cultivating the Tao of massacre, hearing Yuan Tairan's words, the 6 Grand Elders only frowned slightly. They had been in seclusion for a long time and did not know much about the newcomers in the sect, especially the outer sect disciples. However, the inner and outer sect elders, especially Meng Sigong and Wu Zichuan, had a slight change in expression. Sect leader, do you mean that they will attack? The inner sect elder frowned and said. After a slight pause, he continued, it's very possible. Yi Wendao and Chen Hao are competitors. Tantai Lian and Chen Hao are Dao companions. Now that we can't lock onto Tantalien's aura, the biggest possibility is that she has died. This can't be done by Chen Hao. It can only be Yi Wendao. Yi Wendao's aura can't be locked onto either. Could it be that Chen Hao killed Yi Wendao again? Impossible. Meng Sigong immediately said, Yi Wendao was originally half a step into the Golden Core realm. After entering the 7-star grotto heaven, he must have stepped into the Golden Core realm in an extremely short period of time. Once his Massacre Sword Dao entered the 2nd realm, it would be 9 swords combined into one. In the same realm, even Chen Hao, who has decent combat strength, would not be a match for him. How could he be killed by Chen Hao? I don't know how strong Chen Hao is exactly. However, if his Massacre Sword Dao could reach the 2nd realm, it would be difficult for him to find a match in the same realm. Unless Chen Hao has an even stronger inheritance than Yi Wendao. A Grand Supreme Elder said. There's no point in saying more. There's no point in guessing. Let's begin to capture Chen Hao's aura later. If we can't capture it, we can only wait for them to come out. If we can capture it, then what the imparting elder said might be true. Let's make things clear first. No matter who lives or dies, admit it, Yuan Tairan said in a low voice. The Massacre Sword Dao was indeed terrifying, but Yuan Tairan agreed with the Grand Supreme Elder's speculation. As long as they could sense Chen Hao's aura, they could be sure that Tantai Lien had died. As for Yi Wendao, there was an 80% chance that he had died. The remaining 20% chance of survival was due to the change in his bloodline. If that was the case, then he would definitely not be able to sense Chen Hao's aura. This was because Chen Hao might have died like Tantai Lien. However, this possibility was very small. This was because Yuan Tairan was confident in Chen Hao's sword. 4 hours later, Chen Hao's 8 horoscope and his blood essence floated among the 7 of them. It took less than an hour for a dazzling light to rise up from Chen Hao's blood essence. Chapter 235. Condense. At this moment, Yuan Tairan and the various supreme elders suddenly shouted, each of their faces brimming with intense joy. Especially Yuan Tairan. They had succeeded. They had successfully locked onto Chen Hao's aura and confirmed the location of the 4th level. As long as the 7 stars grotto heaven opened next year, they would be able to open the 1st to 4th levels. What did this mean? It meant that the 7 stars grotto heaven of the Jiaxing sect would not only be a sacred cultivation ground for disciples below the Khanate realm, but also for Golden Core realm disciples. It was only a step forward, but the impact on the Jiaxing sect was extremely huge. After entering the Golden Core realm, even those who could be considered true cultivators would start to be restricted by the heavenly Tao. Their cultivation speed would be like rowing a boat against the current. It was extremely difficult. Especially when breaking through to the next level, they would have to endure the heavenly punishment. How many cultivators had stopped at the Golden Core realm? And how many cultivators had died under the heavenly punishment? When the higher levels of the 7 stars grotto heaven opened, even if only 1 Golden Core realm cultivator could enter each year, it was already a big deal, let alone 10. This was a completely different concept from those below the Khanate realm. They could not be mentioned in the same breath. Boom. A sharp, loud, frightened, angry, and desperate cry suddenly erupted amidst the raging nirvana flames and Chen Hao's charge. Boundless, vigorous, and terrifying energy was directly extracted from Chen Hao's body. At the same time, Chen Hao, who was a gentleman with no balls, flew high into the air like a kite with its string cut. He was pleasantly surprised that Tantai Lien had woken up, but he was also extremely depressed. He had not really vented it out yet. It was a critical moment, but Tantai Lien had woken up. Amidst Chen Hao's primal charge, the mysterious power of the phoenix's inheritance, and the process of yin and yang blending, she had woken up. The moment she woke up, Tantai Lien only knew that her body was being possessed, pressed down, and, at this moment, Tantai Lien felt like her head was about to explode. She did not hear the phoenix's voice, nor did she feel Chen Hao's love. Her only thought was what Yi Wendao had tried to do to her before she fell unconscious. Therefore, she did not hesitate to leave the great circulation state of yin and yang and directly attacked. She attacked with despair, fear, and anger. Little bird, tell Huang and little Lien that I'll die once too. I'll leave it to you. At the moment when Chen Hao was sent flying, he thought quickly and conveyed his order to Phoenix. The gun was already loaded, and the bullets were already on the barrel. How could they not fire? Besides, it had already come to this point. Even a god would not be able to hold himself back. Even the powerful existence in Chen Hao's mind and the probing sword spirit had not thought of such a situation. Of course, out of their human habits and their respect for Chen Hao, they did not observe. Otherwise, his eyeballs would definitely fall to the ground. In fact, although the two of them had already begun the fusion of yin and yang and had formed a great cycle of energy in their bodies, they had yet to complete the final step. In other words, Chen Hao still maintained his primordial yang body. What was broken was only his heart. On the other hand, Tan Tai Lien was the opposite. What was broken was only her body. The pure yin hidden in the depths of her heart was still intact. If there was a word to describe the situation between the two of them, it would be half-step fusion. Tan Tai Lien looked at the naked figure that was rolling away and was suddenly dumbfounded. She screamed again. It was only at this moment that Tan Tai Lien regained a bit of consciousness and heard Huang's voice. It's over, it's over. Chen Hao was harmed by you. Little Lien, he did it to save you. It's over, Huang. What's going on? Tan Tai Lien did not care that she was still naked and rushed to Chen Hao in a panic. Her beautiful little face was filled with horror as she asked in her mind. Sai, you were already dead. Chen Hao used the fusion of yin and yang to let his soul out of his body and enter your mind to wake you up. But now, it's over. Huang's childish voice was filled with anxiety. No matter what, she was a divine beast that had existed for countless years. Her acting skills were definitely top-notch. Tan Tai Lien did not need Chen Hao to teach her what to say and what to do. She could naturally make Tan Tai Lien do what she wanted. What should I do? What should I do? Tan Tai Lien did not have time to be ashamed and asked in horror. What are you hesitating for? His soul is still in your mind. You must immediately start dual cultivation with him. Only then can his soul return to his body. Any later and his body will lose its vitality. Hurry! Tan Tai Lien's face was red. Why are you still embarrassed? You have already done what you should have done. If you had not been too agitated when you woke up and did not listen to us, you would have been fine by now. Hurry! What should I do? This. Huang was a little dumbfounded when she heard Tan Tai Lien's words. When they were doing it just now, it was obvious that Tan Tai Lien did not have the slightest consciousness. And now Chen Hao was acting like a dead pig. What should she do? After pondering for a moment, Huang said a little hesitantly, As long as you connect the upper and lower heaven and earth bridges and start the energy fusion, it will form a big cycle in both of your bodies. What are the upper and lower heaven and earth bridges? Cough, cough. Mouth to mouth, two tongues against each other, it is a bridge. Below. You should know. Huang said a little awkwardly for Tan Tai Lien. At the same time, she sent a voice transmission. Huang Feng, this is not good, right? Can't we let Chen Hao take the initiative? Xiaolian is a girl after all. How shy will she be? Just say that Chen Hao can't do it. If he doesn't come, it will be over. Cough, cough, this is what Chen Hao said. At least she has to complete the first step. Otherwise, it won't make sense. Huang responded and directly urged in Tan Tai Lien's mind, Hurry, Xiaolian. If you hesitate, it will be too late. Do you want him to die? Tan Tai Lien's beautiful little face was like the sunset, completely red. Her heart was beating like a little deer. She felt as if she was in a dream, as if it was unreal. She looked at the naked and unconscious Chen Hao with incomparable shame. Suddenly, she thought of something and her face instantly turned pale. Huang, I was already dead. Then did you and Dao? Tan Tai Lien asked in a trembling voice in her mind. What are you thinking about? Chen Hao came just in time. In the instant that you were unconscious, he killed Chen Hao. Don't worry, you only belong to Chen Hao. You completely belong to Chen Hao. Really? Tan Tai Lien asked in disbelief. It's absolutely true. If you hesitate any longer, Chen Hao will be finished. Hurry up and start. Okay, I'll start. Tan Tai Lien's face was like the ever-changing weather, becoming completely red once again. But she firmly, quickly, and without any hesitation, leaned towards Chen Hao. A strand of sparkling tears, unknown whether it was happiness, sadness, or something else, escaped from her eyes. She stared at Chen Hao's handsome and extraordinary face, getting closer and closer. Her delicate lips lightly trembled, and she held her breath. She was extremely nervous as she pressed her lips onto Chen Hao's lips, mouth to mouth, two tongues against each other. Tan Tai Lien thought to herself bashfully in her heart, and closed her eyes. Chen Hao felt Tan Tai Lien's smooth and sweet tongue, and clumsily pushed open his lips, wanting to separate his teeth. Chen Hao originally wanted to continue, making things difficult for her, but this wonderful feeling made him unable to restrain himself. Woo! Suddenly, Tan Tai Lien let out a cry of surprise, and was immediately blocked by Chen Hao. At the same time, Tan Tai Lien, who was originally occupying the upper position, was flipped down by a strong force, lingering without end, making love on a mountain of magi. Gaga! After an unknown period of time, the phoenix broke out of their bodies, and circled above the two in battle. The nirvana flame burned fiercely, and gradually condensed into a huge phoenix nirvana seal. At the same time, when Chen Hao let out a low beastly roar, and Tan Tai Lien couldn't control herself and let out a sound that made her feel ashamed, two illusory figures appeared in the air and merged into the phoenix seal. The true fusion of yin and yang, the fusion of the soul and the body, it was finally completed. Boom boom. Thunderous booms exploded from the depths of their souls. There was no restriction of the Tao companion contract, no barrier of the soul, there was only the true fusion of the soul and the body lingering without end. Traces of mysterious aura naturally started to circulate around the two, and grew in the depths of their souls. 7 stars paradise. The 7 stars, at this moment, shone with incomparably bright light, and enveloped the two. Dense heaven and earth energy was like a myriad of streams flowing into the sea, and at a speed 10 times faster than when the two were cultivating alone, it surged into their bodies. Within their dantian, the golden core that had just been formed not long ago became more and more solid, and more resplendent. The surging energy was like a great river, and in the great circulation system formed by the two, it surged without end and flowed without end, respectfully sending off the Grand Elders. On the star-picking peak, the Grand Elders that had completed their missions, one by one, turned into nothingness and disappeared before everyone's eyes as Yuan Tai ran and the other elders cupped their fists and bowed. Li Long, and the other disciples that have advanced to the Golden Core realm, report to the inner sect. The other disciples can also disperse. Yuan Tai Ran looked at Li Long and the other disciples and said, "Understood." Once everyone left, Yuan Tai Ran looked at Meng Langong and Wu Zichuan and said, Yuan Dao, Chen Hao, and Tan Tai Lien's situation should be very close to what we predicted. Tan Tai Lien should have already died. We can't be sure about Yuan Dao, but what we can be sure of is that if Chen Hao and Yuan Dao come out at the same time, they will fight to the death, and no one will be able to mediate. The two of you cannot add fuel to the fire, and neither of you is allowed to attack in secret, or else you will be punished according to the sect rules. Yes, sect master. Elderly, according to the standards of a core disciple, choose a mountain and start preparing, yes. Sect master, only choose one mountain? What if Yuan Dao also? Elderly replied with a frown. Elderly was the inner sect elder in charge of the welfare of the star-picking sect. Today, I've completed 2 chapters. Tomorrow, it will explode. I'm sure of the 3rd chapter, but I don't dare to say the 4th chapter, and it's also possible for the 5th. Writing requires passion and stimulation. I really need everyone's support. If I can't feel the passion of my brothers and sisters, it will be very difficult for me to get excited in Dark Mountain. Can you give me some stimulation, some passion? If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Chapter 236. Prepare one. If both of them come out, the winner will be the winner. Yuan Tairan didn't leave any room for negotiation. However, he knew that the probability of both of them coming out at the same time was very low. Even if they could come out at the same time, they would have to fight to the death. This was because Tan Tai Lien was definitely dead. How could Chen Hao possibly leave the matter at that? Even though he really wanted genius disciples like Yi Wendao and Chen Hao to exist at the same time. However, Tan Tai Lien's death made that possibility impossible. Even he couldn't stop such a thing. Whoosh. Huaxing City was the closest city to the star-picking sect. A black-clothed figure wearing a bamboo hat landed outside the city gate as fast as lightning. After paying the entrance fee of a level 8 spirit pill, he quickly entered the city. According to his identity, he only needed to show his token and he would be exempted from the entrance fee. But he didn't do that. This black-clothed figure wearing a bamboo hat went straight to the branch of the Wan Tong Chamber of Commerce located in the transforming Star City. Mission 7024. Please. After the black-clothed and bamboo hat man arrived at the mission submission area, he spoke in a fake voice. At the same time, he flashed his mission card and followed a messenger in. The target didn't come out of the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven. According to the speculations of the sect master and elders, he should have opened the 4th level of the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven and advanced to the Golden Core Realm. Oh? Had the 4th level of the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven opened? Are you sure? I'm sure. The 7 Stars Grotto Heaven would be closed for 3 months. But now March had passed. 3 of them didn't come out. I obtained this information from the disciples who entered the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven. Other than the target, who else is there? This isn't part of the mission, is it? Our Wan Tong Chamber of Commerce has always been fair. Any information will have a corresponding value with you. It's just that the news will spread sooner or later. If we spread it earlier, we'll be able to exchange it for enough rewards. What do you think? The black-clothed man fell silent for a moment before he said, besides the target, there's also his Dao companion, Tan Tai Lien, and Yi Wendao. However, Tan Tai Lien should have been killed by Yi Wendao. There was a high chance that Yi Wendao would die at the hands of the target. This was the conclusion that the sect master and Grand Supreme Elder came to after capturing the 3 people's auras. As for when he would be able to come out of the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven, he could not be sure for now. The sect master and the others don't know much about the situation on the 4th floor either. We can only wait. Phew. Impressive, the old man exhaled and said. Although the man in black didn't explain, the old man was able to understand the whole story from his words. Inwardly, he was quite surprised by his target's rapid growth and combat strength. This was not much inferior to some of the genius disciples of the high-ranking sections. Before the target comes out, I won't report to you. All right. This is the reward for this trip. The black bamboo hat man took the unexpected revenge with satisfaction and quickly disappeared from the Wan Tong Chamber of Commerce. After walking out of the Huaxing City, he flew for thousands of miles towards the desolate mountain range. After making sure that no one was following him, he put on the star-picking robe of the Picking Stars sect's disciple and took off his bamboo hat. This person was none other than an outer disciple of the Starsizer sect, Kai Jin. And the mission he accepted was to report Chen Hao's every move at all times. As for who had paid such a high price to post the mission in the Wan Tong Chamber of Commerce, he could guess that it was Fan Fong of the 6th grade sect, the Sword sect. Die. Boom. A demonic beast at the peak of the late-stage golden elixir realm, whose body was like a small mountain, was crushed into meat paste by a true essence giant hand. After killing the demon beast, the youth quickly took out a black token that emitted fluctuations. Is he out? The youth's face flashed with intense killing intent as his consciousness entered the token. What? The 4th level of the 7-Star Grotto Heaven? The Golden Core Realm? A trace of shock flashed in the youth's cold eyes. That's better. Now that you've entered the Golden Core Realm, I'd like to see if you'll still hide in the Picking Stars sect. I've missed my chance once, but I won't let you escape this time. This youth was none other than Fan Fong. At this moment, he was cultivating deep in the mountains that were relatively close to the Picking Stars sect so that he could arrive in time after receiving the news. It's been 4 months. The night sky was clear and silent. Sitting cross-legged, Tantailien slowly opened her eyes and murmured as a powerful aura emanated from her body. I've already reached the peak of the mid-stage golden core realm. I wonder how he's doing? Tantailien looked into the distance and bit her lip. Although she felt embarrassed, she still flew quickly in the direction of Chen Hao. In these 4 months, Chen Hao had not come to see her even once. It was fine when he was immersed in cultivation, but when he woke up, Tantailien felt wronged and even uneasy. After experiencing the true fusion of yin and yang, she was already his Tao partner. Was she not attractive to him at all? Under the starlight, energy surged. Chen Hao's clothes fluttered and his figure drifted. Sometimes it was like moving clouds and flowing water, sometimes it was erratic. He did not have a sword in his hand, but when he pointed a finger, sword chi surged. His body and mind seemed to be completely immersed in cultivation. Tantailien silently appeared a few hundred feet away from Chen Hao, not daring to come any closer. She stared blankly at Chen Hao. The aura of a peak early-stage golden core realm cultivator. But the power he displayed made Tantailien's heart palpitate. Not to mention that she could not lock onto his figure, she could feel a dangerous aura from any of Chen Hao's fingers. Gradually, Tantailien, who was observing carefully, suddenly realized that Chen Hao's figure had slowed down. At this moment, she suddenly realized that Chen Hao's figure was not completely untraceable. Instead, he was stepping on 7 points in a very regular pattern. 7 points. Tantailien suddenly looked up at the void and at the 7 stars. Surprisingly, Chen Hao's trajectory was exactly the same as the structure of the 7 stars. You came just in time. Little Yen, come here. Just as Tantailien was in a daze, Chen Hao waved his hand and sent out a beam of energy. It instantly swept out a few hundred feet and enveloped Tantailien. Tantailien did not know what was going on, but she followed Chen Hao's energy and came to his side at lightning speed. Lend me your energy. Use all your strength. Chen Hao did not explain and directly held Tantailien's soft hand. Their fingers interlocked and their palms faced each other. Boom. With the fusion of yin and yang, Chen Hao was very clear about Tantailien's energy. With a thought, with Tantailien's active cooperation, her energy immediately surged into Chen Hao's body. At this moment, Chen Hao's speed suddenly increased countless times. He turned into a series of afterimages and stepped on the positions of the 7 stars. The aura around him became stronger and stronger as his speed soared. 7-star sword finger. Chen Hao poked the sky with his finger. The sharp wind seemed to have pierced through the shackles of space and the endless darkness. With a speed that could pierce through heaven and earth, it rushed towards the stars hanging high in the void. At this moment, Tantailien felt that her energy had been sucked dry by Chen Hao. She was so weak that she felt dizzy. However, her eyes were filled with extreme shock. She looked at the finger that was about to pierce through the heavens and exuded an extremely sharp and mysterious aura. Rumble. Heaven and earth shook. Within a radius of 1,000 feet, endless energy crazily gathered towards the sword finger that Chen Hao had sent out. It borrowed the power of heaven and earth to perform thousands of supernatural powers. The sword finger that seemed to be tearing through the void did not weaken at all as it rushed towards the stars. Instead, it emitted more and more resplendent and condensed light. Moreover, it was expanding at an astonishing speed. From a small finger to a huge finger that was as big as a mountain, it was still growing crazily. Break for me. After several tens of seconds had passed, Chen Hao let out a cold shout. He withdrew and released, causing the terrifying sword fingers to explode from an unknown distance away. Rumble. It was like divine lightning from the 9 heavens had exploded in the pitch-black night sky. At the same time, the 7 stars that were so far away that they couldn't reach suddenly emitted an incomparably bright light. Immediately, it condensed into a pillar of light that was like the Milky Way of the 9 heavens. It poured down and covered Chen Hao and Tantailien. Chen Hao, who was paler and weaker than Tan Tai Lien, smiled with excitement. He held Tan Tai Lien's slender waist tightly with one hand. Tan Tai Lien felt that the space was distorted. When she regained her vision, she and Chen Hao had already appeared in a huge palace. Well, what is this place? At this moment, Tan Tai Lien looked at Chen Hao, who was holding her waist, and asked in shock. 7 Stars Palace. Fortunately, you came in time, otherwise, it would have been ruined. For months of time, can you really endure it? Chen Hao smiled faintly with a trace of evil charm as he stared at Tan Tai Lien and spoke as if he was implying something. Even you can hold it in, why can't I? Tan Tai Lien opened her mouth and said. However, as soon as she finished speaking, her face suddenly turned red. She said, "What are you talking about, rogue? Okay? There is not much time. There is only one day. We have to search quickly." Chen Hao did not continue this topic. He, who had tasted the forbidden fruit for the first time, had already taken the first step. Of course, he would not refuse the speed of cultivation brought by dual cultivation. However, in these 4 months, he had no time to spare. After completing the first fusion with Tan Tai Lien, the two of them comprehended and cultivated separately. However, he was naturally in a magical formation under the starlight. He also obtained the information in it. The 7 Stars Alignment Formation. Only by comprehending the first level of the 7 Stars Sword Finger could he leave the formation. If he could use the 7 Stars Sword Finger to break the formation, he would be able to connect the 7 stars, break the shackles of the 7 stars, and step into the core treasury of the 7 Stars Cave Heaven. The 7 Stars Alignment Formation was more complicated than Chen Hao had imagined. Chen Hao tried to break it by breaking the formation, but he could not do it at all. In the past 4 months, when Tan Tai Lien arrived, he had only just comprehended the 7 Star Sword Finger and was able to walk out of the formation. When he was about to find Tan Tai Lien could not hold it in and came to find him. Is this the inheritance of the 7 Stars Cave Heaven? Tan Tai Lien asked. It is the treasury. The 7 Stars Cave Heaven has a subtle connection with the thousands of mountains of the Jiaxing sect. It is just a forbidden place for cultivation, not an inheritance site. I think it was condensed by an ancient powerful person. There should be a lot of good things in this palace. Chen Hao was explaining when suddenly a mysterious aura exploded in the palace without warning and shrouded the two of them. First update. Monthly ticket, recommendation ticket, subscription. Thank you. Chapter 237. At the same time, 2 mysterious messages appeared in the minds of Chen Hao and Tan Tai Lien at the same time. 2 bright starlights separated them and shrouded them. A test? What a magical light! Chen Hao was surprised. Before he could think further, the scene in front of him changed. What rich and pure energy! No, it's true essence, pure true essence. In 2 separate spaces, Chen Hao and Tan Tai Lien were shocked. Originally, the energy in the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven was already incredibly dense and pure. But now, under the bright starlight, the two of them who couldn't even see clearly felt that the entire space was filled with quintessential essence that could be absorbed without spending much effort to refine it. However, Chen Hao and Tan Tai Lien did not start cultivating. The information they received was that they had entered the test of the 7 Stars Cave. There shouldn't be any danger. Since it's a test, I'll determine what I can get based on the results. It's the same for Xiaolian, Chen Hao thought to himself. His eyes were shining, but he could not see an inch in front of him. He could only see the bright starlight. W formation? It's not difficult for me. It's really similar to the Taoist 7 Stars Sword formation, Chen Hao thought to himself. Before entering the 7 Stars Cave Heaven, Chen Hao had encountered the 7 Stars Alignment Formation. He was sure that the 7 Stars Cave Heaven was similar to the Taoist's 7 Stars Sword Formation recorded in the Taoist's Secret Essentials. If not, Chen Hao would not have been able to comprehend the 7 Stars Sword Finger in just 4 months. He would not have had the chance to come here. Taking a deep breath, Chen Hao sat cross-legged and immersed himself in comprehension. After an entire 2 hours, Chen Hao's eyes flickered with a bright light as he pointed out with his finger. A strange wave came. The vigorous and sharp sword finger merged into a round crystal that Chen Hao could not see but could sense. At the same time, the air that was completely composed of true essence began to shake violently. The bright starlight in the entire space suddenly dimmed, as if it had gathered together. As Chen Hao recovered his vision, a figure composed entirely of starlight appeared in front of him. This figure held a sword in his hand. His figure was tall and straight, and his entire body was golden like the color of the stars. His eyes were shining with incomparably sharp sword intent. He didn't give Chen Hao any time to think and slashed his sword at Chen Hao. Late-stage Golden Core Realm Strength? Chen Hao's sharp soul perception spread out. He wasn't alarmed, but rather delighted. After stepping into the Golden Core Realm, he was no different from before the Congenital Realm. His monstrous and abnormal physique caused his advancement to still be many times more difficult than others. In the past 4 months, although he had been immersed in the 7-star alignment and comprehended the 7-star finger sword, it was also cultivation. Moreover, he had been constantly refining his golden core. However, he had barely reached the peak of the early-stage Golden Core Realm. Compared to Tantai Lian, who had reached the peak of the middle-stage Golden Core Realm, there was a huge gap. However, the reason why he was pleasantly surprised was that Chen Hao had learned from the information that the energy figure that appeared at this moment was completely based on his combat strength. This meant that he had the combat strength of a late-stage Golden Core Realm expert. Breaking the Dubhe Star of the 7 Stars, which was also the Dubhe formation, was not difficult for Chen Hao. He had done it in 2 hours. However, to truly break it, he had to defeat the figure in front of him. This was a trial and a test. He had to kill this figure in order to enter the next level. Clang. The 5 elements sword suddenly came out of its sheath. Chen Hao brazenly faced the terrifying sword light. A quarter of an hour later, Chen Hao's solitary sword incantation cut off the head of the star-colored energy man with no special moves. The Dubhe formation was broken. Starlight appeared again. The surrounding space fluctuated, and the pattern had obviously changed. Chen Hao knew that the second formation, the Tianxian formation, had been activated. Tantai Lian, who was in another independent space, was not as relaxed as Chen Hao. When Chen Hao entered the Tianxian formation, she was still sitting cross-legged in the Dubhe formation, sending out streams of stored energy to sense the mystery of the Dubhe formation. Unfortunately, in such a short time, she could not make any progress at all. Similarly, in less than 2 hours, Chen Hao once again comprehended the mystery of the Merak formation. But this time, there were 2 golden energy men in the same realm, both at the late stage of the Gold Elixir realm. But the attacks launched by the 2 complemented each other, containing the mystery of the Dubhe formation and the Merak formation respectively. Moreover, the attacks launched by the 2 were a combination attack, which multiplied their combat capability several times. Within 3 moves, Chen Hao was seriously injured, and the 2 golden energy figures disappeared directly. Chen Hao returned to the Tianxian formation again. Obviously, he had failed the test this time. This is only the 2nd formation, and it's already so powerful. It seems that it will take me a long time to break through the 7th formation, Chen Hao thought to himself in shock. This failure was not a real failure. There was no real failure in this test. It would only be considered a real failure if one died of old age here. Even if the next time the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven opened, one would not be ejected before passing through the 7th formation. This was the information he had obtained after entering the 7 Stars Hall. If he had known this, Chen Hao would not have foolishly carried Tantai Lian in. He wasn't worried about himself because he was confident that he would succeed. He had the Taoist 7 Stars formation as a reference. Moreover, he was extremely intelligent and definitely not someone Tantai Lian could compare to. Chen Hao was quite confident about this. It was also because of this that he could successfully comprehend the mysteries of the formation. The time he saved was not small. But what about Tantai Lian? However, it was useless to worry now. Such a mysterious and magical space was not something that Chen Hao could forcefully break through. If Tan Tai Lien wanted to walk out, she could only rely on herself. This was an opportunity for her, and also a challenge. After taking a deep breath, Chen Hao was not in a hurry to activate the life gate of the formation again to activate the golden energy figures. Instead, he immersed himself in cultivation and comprehension. The 3 moves that the 2 golden energy figures had made just now were clearly replaying in slow motion in Chen Hao's mind. For hours later, he challenged again. 6 moves, Chen Hao was defeated. 8 hours later, 12 moves, Chen Hao was defeated. 3 days later, 100 moves, Chen Hao was defeated. As the number of moves increased, Chen Hao found the feeling of fighting to his heart's content. Moreover, he was defeated with serious injuries every time, and it was not fatal. Obviously, this was the bottom line of the test. It would not take one's life. There was no doubt that this was the best cultivation environment for Chen Hao. The only drawback was that there was a lack of variation. This was because the 2 golden men's attacks always started at the same time. Even the order of their moves was not messed up. However, Chen Hao had to fall into their rhythm every time. 5 days later, the 2 golden energy figures tumbled to the ground under Chen Hao's sharp sword light. Chen Hao finally passed the Merak formation and stepped into the 3rd Tianji formation. There were 3 golden energy figures, and each of them was still at the late-stage golden core realm. However, the integration of the 3 Tianji formation made the combined attack of the 3 golden energy figures even more terrifying and perfect. For the first time, Chen Hao was defeated with just 1 move. Chen Hao's arrogant and persistent character had completely fused into this sort of extremely challenging tempering of battle. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. Zhai Xing Peak, where the 7-star grotto heaven runes appeared. During this month, there was always an inner sect elder standing guard. Today, the Zhai Xing sect's sect master, Yuan Tairan, and all the inner and outer sect elders gathered again. Only Wu Zichuan was not present. This was because the biennial 100 Empire ranking was already in the preparation stage. This time, the Zhai Xing sect had tasted the sweetness of the 100 Empire ranking and brought luck. Naturally, the Zhai Xing sect would take action again. He had already brought several inner sect disciples and rushed to the Myriad Treasures Chamber of Commerce to discuss. If the 4th level appeared as they had speculated, then Chen Hao would come out in a month's time. However, Yuan Tairan and the others waited for an entire day, but there was no movement. However, they were not disappointed. Instead, they were looking forward to it. The longer they waited, the greater the benefits. This was obvious. Who would not be happy? The only one who was ambiguous was Meng Langeng. This was because he knew that Yi Wendao's chances of survival were not high. The 2nd month, the 3rd month, the 4th month. How could this be? On Zhai Xing Peak, Yuan Tairan and the 6 Grand Elders frowned and gave up on sensing. No one had expected such an outcome. In the 2nd month, they were still able to maintain their composure and were pleasantly surprised. In the 3rd month, they were still able to maintain their composure but began to worry. In the 4th month, when the 7-star grotto heaven was about to open again in a month's time, Yuan Tairan and the others could no longer remain calm. This was because the 7-star grotto heaven would open again in a month's time. What did this mean? According to the rules of all historical legacies and special spaces, opening again meant a new cycle. If the person who entered last time did not come out, there was only one possibility: death. Left with no choice, Yuan Tairan and the other elders could only invite the 6 Grand Elders to come out and sense Chen Hao's aura once again. However, what shocked everyone was that they could not sense Chen Hao's aura this time. A month later, the 7-star grotto heaven opened again. Although they could no longer sense Chen Hao's aura on the 4th level, they had successfully locked onto him last time, allowing the 4th level of the 7-star grotto heaven to open. The 30 disciples below the Khanate realm were still determined according to the previous arena battles. Yang Fan, Li Yifeng, and Ni Jianpain were among the low-level disciples. However, the 3 of them did not look excited. Instead, they were frowning. The news had spread that Chen Hao and Tan Tai Lien might have died in the 7-star grotto heaven. The disciples who were selected to enter the fourth level were all at the peak of the late-stage Golden Core realm, but they were not the top 10 inner sect disciples. Instead, they were the young disciples who had the absolute advantage in terms of talent, comprehension, and combat strength. They were also the super geniuses who had the highest chance of successfully advancing to the nascent soul realm and becoming a core disciple. After the first 3 levels of disciples entered the 7-star grotto heaven, the 4th level opened. 10 disciples stepped into the rune with solemn expressions. Remember, no one is allowed to kill each other. Come out alive. If one of you dies, even if you come out, you will all be killed without mercy. Remember, all of you. P.S. I'm scratching my head. I'm stuck. I've been holding back since last night and have only published 2 chapters before 12 o'clock. I'll definitely finish 3 chapters. Fortunately, I didn't make a promise yesterday. Otherwise, I would have broken my promise. I didn't dare to make a promise because I'm afraid of encountering a situation where I'm stuck. Chapter 238. Yuan Tairan had no choice but to set this rule. The deaths of Chen Hao, Tan Tai Lian, and Yi Wendao made his heart bleed. The only thing worth celebrating was that the 4th level was finally opened. However, they knew nothing about the so-called 4th level. They could only wait for the new disciples to come out before they could know the details. Did they all die because of killing each other, or was there something else going on in the 4th level? Kai Jin's mission from the Myriad Channel's Chamber of Commerce came to an end. He did not receive the highest reward, but Kai Jin was very excited. Chen Hao's death made him excited. Without Chen Hao, he could have entered the 7-star grotto heaven last year. However, Chen Hao made him fail at the last step. He could not even recover the loss of suppressing his cultivation base for half a year. After confirming that Chen Hao had died in the 7-star grotto heaven, how could he not be happy? As for Fan Fong, who had painstakingly cultivated in the mountains not far from the star-picking sect, he was so angry that he almost vomited blood. The 2 people he hated the most had died in the 7-star grotto heaven. What could he do? What a dense heaven and earth spirit chi. It's not true essence. True essence. 7-star. It's actually 7 stars. What's going on? 7 months, there's actually 7 months. That's great. After the 10 inner sect disciples stepped into the 7-star grotto heaven, they were immediately filled with shock and joy. No one expected the 7-star grotto heaven to be so powerful. They also did not expect that it was not the so-called 1 star, but 7 stars. They also did not expect that the information they received in an instant was that they could stay in there for a full 7 months. This was a full 4 months longer than the 1st level to the 3rd level. Chenjun, is that you? It's me. Zhaochen? It's true. It seems that the 10 of us are really in the same space. No wonder Chen Hao, Yi Wendao, and Tan Tai Lian died here. They must have killed each other. Phew. Fortunately, the sect leader set the rules. Otherwise, I'll be in danger, Chenjun said. Among the 10 people who came in this time, Mo Xiaozong, who was the strongest, was his enemy. In the past, their strength was on par, but this time, Mo Xiaozong, who returned from the 7 stars cave heaven, had obtained some kind of opportunity and advanced to the late-stage gold core realm. He was definitely not someone he could compete with. There was no doubt that if it weren't for Yuan Tairan's rule, he would have died here. Hurry up and cultivate. In 7 months, with such pure quintessential essence, it is possible for you to step into the late golden core stage. At best, he could only raise his cultivation to the peak of the late-stage golden core realm. Even if he couldn't win in a fight, he wouldn't have to be afraid of him outside. He won't dare to kill you here, or we'll all die. The sect master has always been a man of his word. He would never just threaten you. Yes, we put some distance between us. Let's begin. 3 months later, 30 outer sect disciples were ejected from the 7 stars grotto heaven one after another. With their improvements, Yuan Tairan and company finally revealed a smile. Their gains were even greater than Qin Hao's batch of disciples last year. Although the new geniuses were still inferior to Chen Hao and Yi Wendao, they were beginning to stand out, which comforted everyone. Although the cultivation of these disciples was like an ant in front of them, they symbolized the future of the sect and had to be taken seriously. However, none of the 10 inner sect disciples who entered the 4th level came out. It had to be said that the unknown was terrifying. Now, everyone was most worried that the 10 inner sect disciples would end up like Chen Hao and the other 2. Then, the 4th level would no longer be a holy land for cultivation, but a land of death. They didn't come out for the 4th month, and still didn't come out for the 5th month. At this time, Yuan Tairan and company could no longer sit still. Once again, they asked the Grand Elder to check on the 10 inner sect disciples. To everyone's relief, the auras of the 10 inner sect disciples could be captured and easily locked onto. As for when they would come out, it was impossible for everyone to wait here. 1 year and 6.5 months. Excluding the 3 months spent on the 3rd level and the 4 months spent in the 7 stars alignment, Chen Hao had stayed in the 7 stars hall for a total of 11 months and 15 days. Chen Hao had passed the Dubhe, Merak, Fekta, Migrez, Alioth, and Mizar arrays. Only the last array, the Alcade array, was left. He had stayed in the Alcade array for a total of 6 months. He had already comprehended the array, but the difficulty was the 7 golden men at the peak of the late-stage golden core realm. Chen Hao had already stepped into the mid-stage golden core realm, and the golden men had also advanced along with him to the peak of the late-stage golden core realm. Moreover, all the golden men's realms had advanced. In addition, the 7 golden men had completely formed the 7 stars array. Chen Hao couldn't find any flaws at all, and the attacks were endless. Chen Hao had lost count of how many times he had failed. Phew! Chen Hao, who was sitting cross-legged, let out a long sigh and slowly opened his eyes. The 2 sharp sword lights seemed to be substantial, and what was more shocking was that the essence chi emitted from the top of his head contained a sword essence that could pierce the sky. Swordsman. There was no doubt that the sword essence emitted by the swordsman was many times more powerful than that of Moue. I actually comprehended sword essence. I should be able to succeed, right? Chen Hao said lightly with a hint of surprise. After being trapped here for nearly a year, even Chen Hao didn't expect that the Alcade array would be so powerful after turning into the 7 golden men. The first 6 arrays had only taken him 5.5 months, but the last array had taken him half a year. Until now, he hadn't defeated the 7 golden men. Sword essence, swordsman, I don't pursue it. Strictly speaking, the sword Dao isn't even my main cultivation, but I can comprehend it. It seems that it should be the credit of the solitary sword technique. My attack power should be increased by at least 40%, right? Sensing that the energy in his body had become more condensed under the stimulation of sword essence, and that each strand of vital essence contained an invincible will, Chen Hao thought to himself, and his confidence became stronger and stronger. The 7 golden men, the peak of the late-stage gold elixir realm was their limit, and above that was the nascent soul realm. Although Chen Hao was abnormal, he didn't have the ability to defeat a nascent soul realm master. Chen Hao had now stepped into the middle-stage gold elixir realm, and killing any golden man was no problem. However, when the 7 golden men joined forces, it was a 7 stars array with almost no flaws, and the energy was the same. The power it exerted was definitely not as simple as 7 late-stage gold elixir realm masters. Otherwise, Chen Hao would have been able to defeat them long ago. Chen Hao slowly stood up, his figure as straight as a sword. With a clang, he directly unsheathed his sword, and a sword light immediately merged into the crystal ball of the Alcade array. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 7 golden men with terrifying auras suddenly appeared in front of Chen Hao, and with a swoosh, they surrounded Chen Hao. Solitary sword art. Without any hesitation, Chen Hao swung his sword and stabbed out. Streaks of incomparably sharp light spread out, and the entire space was shrouded under sword essence. The sword light was like lightning, and the sword was merciless. Chen Hao's expression was as solemn as a mountain and calm as an ancient well, as if he didn't reveal any emotions. There was only a ruthless sharpness, and it also contained a murderous aura that only Yi Wendao had, as if he wanted to kill everything in front of him. Swoosh, swoosh. In an instant, streaks of sword light that seemed to tear through space attacked one of the 7 golden men at the same time. It was unbelievably fast, and what was even more terrifying was that all the attacks were on one point, and there was no spectacular momentum, but, for the first time in 6 months, Chen Hao broke through the powerful defense of the 7 golden men, which had instantly condensed their energy into one. Bang! The forehead of one of the golden men was directly penetrated, and with a swoosh, it dissipated into nothingness like golden powder. The remaining 6 golden men were instantly defeated. Under Chen Hao's sharp sword light, it was like cutting melons and vegetables, and it only took 1 minute for the battle to end. With one less, the combat strength of the 6 golden men was no threat at all. This was the biggest weakness of the combined formation attack, and not a single one could be missing. Chen Hao could easily kill the 6 golden men half a year ago. It's finally broken. No wonder real swordsmen are so popular. I've only just comprehended sword essence, and it's already so powerful, Chen Hao said with a trace of excitement. The terror of sword essence was beyond his imagination. The space was distorted, and the arcade formation finally collapsed. A huge circular room appeared in front of Chen Hao. It was 1,000 feet in diameter, and the circular floor was divided into 7 pieces. Each piece was different in color, and they were covered with runes that could operate independently and connect as a whole. It was the 7-layer formation that Chen Hao broke through. In the center of the circle stood a cylindrical platform, and on the platform were 4 jade slips that exuded an ancient aura. Secret manuals of absolute arts? Chen Hao's heart skipped a beat, and he was slightly disappointed. What he yearned for the most was not secret manuals of absolute arts, but precious things like elixirs and miraculous medicines, but he had no choice. Obviously, this was his reward. 7 stars sword technique, 7 stars finger sword, 7 stars footwork, 7 stars sutra. It's actually a combination of absolute arts? Thank goodness. After Chen Hao saw the immortal names on the 4 jade slips, a trace of relief appeared on his face, and he directly put them into the storage space. At this moment, a beam of light appeared out of thin air and covered Chen Hao. I'm afraid Xiao Lian still needs a long time. The moment his figure disappeared, Chen Hao thought to himself. He had a subtle thought. However, he immediately cut it off. This was definitely a good thing for Tantai Lian. It was such a sacred cultivation ground, and there were golden men to fight. When Tantai Lian came out, she would definitely have an astonishing improvement. Chen Hao knew that it was not necessarily a good thing for him to come out so quickly. If he cultivated slowly, he would definitely be able to steadily improve. At least, it would be better than cultivating in the star-picking sect. Even if he went out to train, it would be better to stay there if he did not have great opportunities and luck. However, Chen Hao did not deliberately care about this. If he could do it, he would do it. Let nature take its course. An inner sect elder guarding the rune of the star-picking peak's 7 stars grotto heaven suddenly sensed a mysterious aura fluctuation and immediately opened his eyes. A bright light rose. Ever since the outer sect disciples returned, they had been waiting for 3.5 months. She's finally coming out. The inner sect elder's face flashed with excitement. With a thought, he immediately sent out a message. As soon as he sent out the message, the elder's expression changed drastically, and his eyes widened as if he had seen a ghost. Third update today. Chapter 239. Disciple Chen Hao pays his respects to 4th elder. This elder was Elder Li, who was in charge of the welfare of the star-picking sect. He was Li Hong, ranked 4th among the inner sect elders. Chen Hao saw the 4th elder's shocked expression and did not find it strange. He smiled and cupped his fists in greeting. Chen Hao, are you really Chen Hao? Li Hong's expression carried a trace of excitement, but he still asked in disbelief. Yes. Chen Hao? Ah. How is this possible? Is this real? At this moment, Yuan Tairan and the others, who had received Li Hong's message, rushed over as fast as lightning when the mysterious rune emitted its aura. When they saw Chen Hao, they were extremely shocked. Good. Chen Hao, quickly tell us, what's going on in the 4th level? Why did you take so long to come out? Tell us the details. Even Yuan Tairan could not control his excitement and asked impatiently. Yes, Chen Hao replied and calmly explained the situation after entering the 7-star space. He did not omit anything, including the 7-star Peril array of the 7 Stars Palace. 7 Stars Palace, quintessential essence space? No wonder we could not lock onto your aura. So that's why. Chen Hao, are Tantai Lien and Yi Wendao? Yuan Tairan asked. Little Lien is still in the 7 Stars Palace. It will probably take some time for her to come out. Chen Hao said. What? Are you sure? Yuan Tairan asked in shock. The others were also shocked. Yes. She will probably take some time, Chen Hao said calmly. Chen Hao could sense something strange from everyone's gazes, especially Meng Langang. Coupled with Yuan Tairan's words about locking onto their auras, Chen Hao already knew what was going on. Strange, why couldn't I sense Tantai Lien and Yi Wendao's auras? Did you see Yi Wendao? Yuan Tairan asked. Since Tantai Lien was still alive, it meant that their speculations were completely wrong. Yes, Chen Hao said. Where is he? Are you still in the 7 Stars Palace? Meng Dagong asked anxiously. Chen Hao shook his head and exuded a fierce aura. He said, I killed him. The sect leader was unable to lock onto Xiao Yan's aura because Xiao Yan had almost died in Yi Wendao's hands. To be more precise, she had already died in Yi Wendao's hands. Fortunately, Xiao Yan has the inheritance of the phoenix, so she was able to escape. This matter is over. Yuan Tairan interrupted Meng Langang and looked at Chen Hao. Chen Hao, your mountain peak has already been prepared for you. You can enjoy the treatment of a core disciple. You should have comprehended quite a bit in the past year. Go back and cultivate in seclusion. Thank you, Sovereign. Unbelievable. Senior brother Chen Hao came back alive. Yeah, and he has even reached the mid-stage of the Golden Core realm. Tantai Lien isn't dead either. She's still in the 7 Stars Palace. The information released by the sect didn't mention Yi Wendao. I'm afraid the rumors are the same. He must have died in the hands of senior brother Chen Hao. Damn it, Jijun, I'm afraid we're in trouble. What's there to be afraid of? Isn't it just stealing Li Yifeng's woman? We'll restrain ourselves in the future. It's not a big deal. Chen Hao won't do anything to us because of this. Besides, it's time for us to find a backer. You and I are ranked 1st and 2nd among the low-ranked disciples. As long as we can enter the top 10 among the mid-ranked disciples, it won't be a problem for us to join senior brother Long Yukong's faction. That's true. Senior brother Long Yukong is ranked 1st among the core disciples. As long as we're qualified to join his faction, it won't be a problem. There are still 5 months left. Let's go out and train. We'll come back on the last day of the 7 Stars Palace. 4 hours later, all the outer, inner, and core disciples of the star-picking sect were in an uproar. This was because news of Chen Hao's return from the 7 Stars Palace had been released through the sect's token. Chen Hao's peak, which was named after Chen Hao, was also officially opened. The nearby hills had become Chen Hao's peak. Without Chen Hao's permission, no one was allowed to cultivate there. The disciples who were training outside also received news of Chen Hao's return through the token. Yi Feishue and the rest were naturally surprised. When Elder Wu and Dongfang Ting received the news, they were obviously even more excited. However, when they received a personal message from the sovereign that Chen Hao was coming to the 100 Empire ranking, both of them frowned. As for Li Long, who was training outside, after receiving the news, he didn't say a word and used his fastest speed to go to the Wan Tong Merchant Association. After Chen Hao returned to his own peak, he went to find Yang Fan, Li Feng, and Denai Jian Pain before the sect sent out the news. The 3 of them were naturally excited to see that Chen Hao had returned alive. Chen Hao, who enjoyed the treatment of a core disciple, allowed the 3 of them to stay in his peak. Core disciples had the right to cultivate their own forces. The peak that was specially prepared for Chen Hao had already attracted the jealousy of many core disciples. Regardless of the location of the peak, the palace built, or the condensed array, it was ranked at the top among the core disciples. The four of them drank and chatted until late at night. When Yang Fan and the other two returned to their new palace, Chen Hao turned into a stream of light and flew silently to the star-picking peak. Just as he reached the entrance of the star-picking peak, an invisible energy welcomed Chen Hao in. Yuan Tairan had been waiting for a long time. He stared at Chen Hao and asked with a smile, "Have a seat. What's the matter that you want to talk to me alone?" Today, before Chen Hao left, he sent a voice transmission to say that he would visit him at night. "Sect Master, I want to go take a look at the 100 Empire rankings." Chen Hao sat down and said in a low voice, "100 Empire rankings? Before my friends should have made it into the 100 Empire rankings. I want to pull them to the star-picking sect." Chen Hao said. It had been a year and 10 months since he stepped into the star-picking sect. The biennial 100 Empire rankings was about to reach the final 100 Empire rankings battle. Of course, Chen Hao would remember. In fact, this was one of the main reasons why he broke through so many levels in the 7 Stars Hall. "That's a simple matter. You just need to tell me your name and I'll send a message to Elder Wu. As long as they don't mind our star-picking sect's low grade, there won't be a problem. I want to go personally and train at the same time," Chen Hao said. Upon hearing Chen Hao's words, Yuan Tairan frowned slightly and said, "You're only at the mid-stage Golden Core realm now. Fan Fong finds out about your training, it'll be very dangerous. He's already a half-step nascent soul realm cultivator and can trigger the Heavenly Tao Law at any time to ascend to the nascent soul realm. I can't hide in the sect forever just because of him. Moreover, I need to train. The Eastern continent is vast and boundless. It won't be easy for him to find me. I'll sneak out and announce that I'm in seclusion. As long as he's not at the nascent soul realm, he won't be able to do anything to me," Chen Hao said confidently and resolutely. "You mean to go take a look at the 100 Empire rankings and start training right away? If that's the case, then you can go. This year's 100 Empire rankings battle is organized by the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. It's 3 million miles away from the star-picking sect. If you want to go, use the Chamber of Commerce's transportation array. Be careful. You're only at the mid-stage Golden Core realm." Yuan Tairan pondered for a moment but still agreed to Chen Hao's request. "Understood," Chen Hao replied. "When do you leave?" "Tomorrow," Chen Hao said. "Wait a moment," Yuan Tairan said and disappeared in front of Chen Hao. A moment later, he took out a storage ring and said, "There are some primal crystal stones in here and 3 sets of Earth-class mid-grade absolute art jade slips. 1 set of sword techniques, 1 set of movement techniques, and 1 set of quenching true yuan. This is all I can give you. You'll have to rely on yourself for the rest. The world of cultivation is dangerous. Countless geniuses have fallen in training. Only true geniuses can stand out." After Chen Hao left the star-picking peak, a figure silently came to the palace of the sect master, Yuan Tairan. It was the elder of imparting techniques. Whoosh. The next day, a stream of light streaked across the sky. Chen Hao stepped on a cloud and left the star-picking sect at lightning speed. He had truly stepped into the world of cultivation. 3 million miles isn't very far. There are still 2 months before the 100 Empire ranking competition begins. Since I'm out, there's no need to use the teleportation formation, Chen Hao thought to himself as he flew quickly in the void. A map of the eastern continent appeared in his mind. He was very clear about the rules of the world of cultivation. Of course, he would not forget his conflict with Fan Fong. However, it would not be in his character to stay in the star-picking sect forever just because of Fan Fong. Although Chen Hao had not tested his current combat strength, he believed that even if he could not defeat Fan Fong, he could at least survive. The star-picking sect was only a third-rank sect. He could be considered a super genius in the star-picking sect and was highly regarded by the sect master. However, compared to the geniuses in the world of cultivation, he was still at the bottom. If he wanted to improve quickly, he had to start training. So what if it was dangerous? Opportunity and danger went hand in hand. Bush, 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 bush. Chen Hao increased his speed to the maximum. After entering the Golden Elixir realm, other than fighting the Golden Men, he did not have a real understanding of his speed and strength. After all, the Golden Men's combat strength was different from that of a cultivator. Their cooperation was perfect, but there was no change. After all, they lacked flexibility and flexibility. So fast. Chen Hao did not know that in the void hundreds of miles away, a figure seemed to have merged with the world. His aura was completely restrained as he quietly followed him. After sensing Chen Hao's increasing speed, the figure was a little shocked. Even an advanced Golden Elixir realm expert would not be able to match this kid in terms of speed. The sect master is still the best. The figure murmured. It was the elder of imparting skills of the star-picking sect. Yuan Tyron's importance to Chen Hao was definitely beyond his and the other elders' imagination. It was even more unbelievable that he had sent him, the elder of imparting skills. This made him a little dissatisfied. But at this moment, Chen Hao displayed a speed that was completely beyond his level, which made him feel a little better. Peace, I'm very sorry. I was delayed by something today. It just so happens that there is a plot twist that needs to be carefully thought out, so I wrote it very slowly. Today is the first update. Everyone, please don't wait. Tomorrow, Dark Mountain will pay you back at midnight. Sorry. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.